Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and all the folks, to the Movie Date with Rob and Matt. This is a podcast for people who love talking about movies but don't want to be too smug about it. My name is Matt.
My name's Rob.
Not the title; it switches around, Rob and Matt. But still, that's us.
Could be Matt and Rob. We decide. You don't get to decide which order we put the names of the podcast.
It's all about mouth sounds, and Rob and Matt sounds better than Matt and Rob.
Yeah, it's been a bit, but we're back.
Yep. As you're saying, we're just gonna cruise right into it.
Yeah. The Oscars happened.
The Oscars
and
happened.
Nothing noteworthy happened during it. Just some people won some stuffy awards. No assaults took place that I'm aware of. Dune won a bunch of stuff.
My rationale was assaulted by Kenneth Branagh winning his screenplay. I'm like, with everything else going on, okay, all right, fine. I'm not. And I should know, like, a lot of these movies I've not seen. I've not seen Coda. You saw Belfast. I've not seen Belfast. I've not seen Drive My Car. I haven't even seen Licorice Pizza, which is one of the movies I was most excited about because I just can't find.
I was surprised that didn't win anything.
Time to sit down with.
But I was surprised Licorice Pizza didn't win anything.
Yeah.
I have not seen Licorice Pizza either. Or what you have seen it, but I haven't.
No, I have not seen it.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't had the time to sit down and just enjoy it.
I knew a lot of people were like, "It's incredible" or whatever when it was coming out, and I was like, it seemed like a nice, sort of well-intentioned kind of teenage love story kind of thing.
But it's also Paul Thomas Anderson, so it's like, hey,
that guy's an enigma. He's like Steven Soderbergh. He'll direct anything. Like he'll do There Will Be Blood, and then he'll do something like this, and then he'll do like Inherent Vice, and then he'll do like.
I've listened to interviews with Paul Thomas. Like I listened to him on Mark Maron's WTF, and he's like a really like funny, like goofy guy.
Yeah.
But his movies have a really earned sense of seriousness and sincerity.
Whether they're like earnest in a whether they're sort of earnest in a endearing kind of nice way, or they're like really grim and cynical.
Sorry, I got a call from David at Collective Services. My good friend David at Collective Services, who is telling me about
how's he
the
doing.
Important thing.
I heard he was had a thing with the lip or whatever.
Oh no, he sounds exactly the same as he sounded yesterday and the day before. He's very consistent. That's why he got hired for the job, to tell me about my car insurance or whatever.
Interesting thing about Kenneth Branagh. I think Kenneth Branagh is the thinking man's Tim Burton. Why do I say this? Because he'll direct, actually, he's probably, to be perfectly fair, he's probably better than Tim Burton. Tim Burton's directed a lot of stinkers in the last 10 years.
I'm going to pull up Kenneth Branagh's filmography.
Okay, so,
quick.
because
you're also talking about early Tim Burton is some 10 out of 10 home run hits.
Yes, I don't disagree. But
I mean, I never saw Big Eyes or anything like that, but apparently it was fine.
Yeah.
It's just, I think everyone got burned out by. I think there are even people who come around to say his Alice and especially his Wonka are not as bad as people remember. Planet of the Apes is universally understood to be crap. At work we have to have Disney Plus on because it's a lot of kids there or whatever. Right. So I kind of watched 30 minutes of those Alice movies over the time. No. There's nothing about it that looks appealing to me. But
it looks like Johnny Depp fell into a big green screen Technicolor vat or whatever. Like everything is everything's dialed up to 11.
His design in it, much like his design in Wonka, is very visually unappealing.
Yeah. And but
apparently it works more for Wonka, but I've not seen that movie.
Sure. But Kenneth Branagh has made a career after all these times of not to mention his Shakespeare stuff, which is really good. In Othello, he was in.
His Hamlet is pretty well noted. Mm-hmm. His Henry is pretty well noted.
Didn't he do As You Like It?
He did it. I think he did. Much Ado. He did Much Ado.
Yeah,
he didn't As You Like It.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that he directed Thor.
Yeah.
That people always forget that. He did that really terrible rendition of Artemis Fowl, which was plagued by reshoots and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But even that movie that I saw was so it was bad in a very interesting way. He's done movies like.
Oh.
Yeah.
So in 1994, he directed Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as, I'm guessing, a companion piece to Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Again.
And that's the one with Robert De Niro playing the Beast. Helena Bonham Carter's in it. I think they were dating at the time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hamlet, Love Labor's Lost. So we got a lot of Shakespeare throughout the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. He did The Magic Flute.
That Frankenstein movie is actually pretty good.
I've never seen it. I've only heard jokes about Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
I'm a monster.
It's all right. I think it's pretty good.
See, Dead Again.
It captures the tragedy of Frankenstein pretty well, or whatever. I would say Frankenstein is a story about child abuse in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But and whether if you get it right or get it wrong, it comes down to how well you understand the monster and like how
and
you
also
portray
the
him.
whole
That's why like
Promethean greater mythology and lore.
Yeah, like that's why movies like Victor Frankenstein are so dog shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like Max Landis turns him into a big Hulk monster at the end. I'm like, this is dumb. He takes the most interesting part of the story and makes it stupid.
Yes, he directed Thor.
Mm-hmm.
He directed Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. He directed All Is True, which is
I know
one of
that.
those movies about like, is Shakespeare actually Shakespeare? In the Derek Jacobi and Mark Rylance thing, where they don't believe he was actually just a regular guy. He was like some other. It was a conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. Is that the one with Rhys Ifans?
Rhys Ifans,
Yeah.
And a movie that I did not like because it's a remake of a movie I really love is his Sleuth.
The one with Jude Law and Michael Caine?
Do you know about the original?
Yes. So Michael Caine was in the original,
Michael
but
Caine
as
played the
Jude Law's character.
role, and it was Laurence Olivier
Yeah.
who played that. It's based on a play by Peter Schaefer. And
Kenneth
it's a
Branagh has
great
also
movie.
Yeah, Kenneth Branagh has also played Laurence Olivier in this movie with, I can't remember what it was called, the one with Marilyn, My Week with Marilyn or something.
Yeah.
He's really good in that too.
He's a fantastic actor.
He gets around, like
And
even
he's a
in
good enough
something,
director,
even
but-
in something that you like forget him in like because the reason I'm saying this because I really recently watched his Agatha Christie movies,
Right.
and he's really good in those.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Because
a
he plays Hercule Poirot in those,
yes,
right?
and he's very like he strikes this really nice balance between disarmingly funny, kind of like Greg House.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's kind of smart, and it kind of makes him difficult to connect with other people in a
But
way.
that gives him-
But he also has lots of little good quick jokes or whatever. Like someone introduces him to his mother, like this man is the greatest detective in the entire world. And he goes, "Oh, you exaggerate," but no, that is probably true. Yes, or something like that. So like even in a movie like I mean I don't. His character in Tenet I find very confusing, but I don't think that's his fault.
Right,
But
I
like
think
even
that's
in
a
a
lot.
movie like Dunkirk, where he plays like one of the I can't remember who he plays, but he plays like a general trying to get these guys off the beach.
That's a very earned character thing where you're like, oh, Kenneth Branagh bringing it. Like I remember him being on that pier in Dunkirk while all that's happening is just really exciting.
Yeah. And when I watched Belfast, I felt like it was a movie about weathering violence, really, because it's about the Northern Ireland conflict and stuff.
It's set in the 70s.
Yep.
It's set during the Troubles.
It's got a lot of great like English and Irish actors in it. Steppenwolf is in it.
I would say
Ciarán Hinds.
Ciarán Hinds got his Oscar nomination for this. He for best supporting. It went to the guy from Coda.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Ciarán Hinds.
love Ciarán Hinds.
Yeah, it's really good, and like it really is like I love that I
Dame
never.
Judi Dench is in it.
I love that I never know what I'm gonna get from him. You might get Thor or Jack Ryan, or you might get Artemis Fowl, or you might get I don't think I think his Shakespeare days are kind of done, but like you might get something like Belfast, or you might see him pop up as an actor in one of these movies. That guy's really good. I'm always excited to like see whatever new thing he's going to be involved with.
What was your introduction to Kenneth Branagh? Because I know mine.
The Shakespeare stuff.
Okay, I mean, like since you were a kid.
Yeah, I saw that movie when I was 12 in English class as
okay.
Iago.
Yeah,
in
he's great as
Othello.
Iago. Who played Othello in that? Was
Lawrence Fishburne.
That's Fishburne, right? I still am always going to remember him as Dr. Arliss Lovelace in Wild Wild West.
Oh yeah, that's right. I always forget that
Because
he's
it's
in
him
that.
and Kevin Kline, but him and Kevin Kline voiced.
The Road to El Dorado.
Yes, they were both Tullio.
Oh yeah, I
and-
forgot. That's another one.
And I remember as a kid,
That
both those
movie is
movies came
hyper
out-
underrated.
It's pretty dope.
I've watched it a bunch of times. I love the jokes. I love it's that mid period of DreamWorks before they kind of got real big from doing like How to Train Your Dragon and Shrek and
It was
stuff.
the last of the hand drawn. It was that like Prince of Egypt
and the Sinbad movie. Yeah,
Prince of Egypt. Kind of like we just got out of we just got out of Easter, Ramadan, and Passover.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, all of them kind of happen at the same time. So everybody's Judeo-Christian, Islamic religions are coming together, talk about their favorite media.
Yeah.
It's like Prince of Egypt is kind of up there.
Yeah, Prince of Egypt is a good movie as well. Like
fantastic movie.
those three animated movies are all kind of greatly underrated. And when
And
they
then
came
they
out,
just
they were
ends.
when they came out, they didn't do terribly well. And they were kind of mediocred by critics. But when I look at them now, I'm kind of like, I wish there were more movies.
El
like this
Dorado and especially Prince of Egypt now have this big cult following and this big like classic following.
A lot of it's because like Road to El Dorado is because like meme culture brought it back.
Right.
And I'm very happy that happened. Like the meme of like Tulio whacking his head against the wall and he looks back at somebody to do it. Like
him playing the mandolin like really fast. Like
yeah,
it's bardcore. Like
my favorite. Oh my god, I love that. Like I love that little musical refrain where they're using the loaded dice, and then the guy figures out their dice is loaded, and he goes, "Your dice are loaded," and he goes like, dun, 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 dun. Like, and he's like actively like narrating the scene, and then like Tulio grabs it. Tulio grabs it. Like, oh god, I was like, is everything okay?
Is there a tornado?
I don't know if the listeners just heard that, but there's a big tornado siren going outside. I think it's Wednesday, right? Yeah, it's Wednesday. So it's yeah.
It was just late.
Yeah, because
it's supposed to happen on noon on the dot, and it's like 12:30.
Yeah. Anyway,
right. Well, the weather's been kind of rough lately, so we're all.
I'm not surprised because a tornado happened like a week ago or whatever.
Oh, did you? This is completely a side tangent, but there's a lot of heat right now in the weather community because they had put up that big tornado warning and tornado emergency up near Pocahontas up north.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out it wasn't real. Like nobody actually saw anything. And so they like wasted all these resources to do it. And now like I was talking to somebody recently and they're like, yeah, they brought in like all the storm chasers and everybody and everyone just got like a browbeating. Because like whoever gave that report is probably going to be federally prosecuted for crying wolf. Because it's like they said, no, there's something on the ground right now. Da 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 da. And then the National Weather Service went through and checked. And it was like, there's nothing here but like very light wind damage.
Yeah,
y'all are in big trouble. So there's a lot of hot takes going on in the severe weather community.
I find that kind of hilarious.
It's interesting. It's probably a discussion they've been needing to have for a while.
Anyway, Road to El Dorado has one of my favorite fake fights. So like Tulio grabs the mandolin and he looks at me and goes, "You gave me loaded dice," and they eventually they stage a fake fight. Like, how dare you? So
is that the one?
They steal the swords from the guards and they have this really well thought out fight to get out of it.
They have about like so and so's with your brother. I don't know, your sister.
Oh no, he's like, you fight like my sister because I fought your sister. Dude. That's a compliment. And they have a great fight.
It is a great. It is a movie for anybody who's playing rogues or bards in D&D. It is like, this is your archetypes right here.
Yeah, they're great. Anyway,
fun movie.
Kenneth Branagh gets around. That sleuth. You don't like the new sleuth.
No.
Tell me in 60 seconds why you don't like the new sleuth. Because I watched it and I was like, I haven't seen the original, but I was like, this is pretty cool. It gets weirdly homoerotic near the end.
Yes, and that's something that's not present in the original play or in the original movie. Is the kind of like. I guess you could play it that way, but using all the digital nature of it, all the like, it doesn't feel fleshed out enough. It's like he had a great idea, but it wasn't really there, and it's too dark. It's too like cut up. It doesn't flow well. It's too melodramatic. Yeah. When the original one is all very analog. It's all very staged. It's all very dramatic. It's all very.
Feels a little more like a play almost.
Yeah, and
because it is a play,
and it's more intimate. And this feels, and that one always felt very like hard to grasp. Like, I was like, I don't know what's going on. There's a logic here that doesn't make sense.
The thing I remember liking about it is the part where Jude Law comes back and playing as a detective or whatever. Yes. That was really good.
That's one of the best tricks of that play, and of it is like. Traditionally, what you're supposed to do is in the second act.
Because he keeps diminishing him and calling him a hairdresser. He's like, I'm an actor or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it keeps happening over and over and over again or whatever.
Which is funny because he is a hairdresser in the. I can't recommend the Olivier one once enough because it's such great acting. And also when they pull off the whole switcheroo in the script and in the play and in the stuff, they put in a fake actor. That's like this guy's playing Inspector Doppler, and that's what you're supposed to traditionally do is like put in a fake actor, like say Mr. John Quincy Royce is going to be playing, and it just to trick the audience and to be like, no, it was the other actor the whole time, and so that's traditional. And this one is a little more.
I wonder how you pull it off on stage. There's the part where he takes all the stuff off.
Yeah, I've seen people either use prosthetics or just a full on mask. Yeah. Like seriously, it's. You try to do the best you can.
Fair enough, yeah.
And trick the audience enough. But the audience knows they're going to know. Yeah. But it's all the magic of the story.
Yeah.
I do recommend that original Olivier one. I think it's better. I just remember I haven't seen it since I was quite young, and at that time I really loved the original movie, and so I was just really sour.
I'll have to check it because I only had the experience of watching that mid 2000s one. And I remember
it's probably better now given that it's a movie.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of movie they don't make anymore.
I remember watching it and being like, it starts off good and it ends with a weird thud. Just kind of being like, I don't know what this is.
And I think by leaning into this romanticism, this kind of like they're tricking each other's like sexual curiosities, I think that while interesting may have led to that thud because it's not present in the original script.
Yeah. You know what cleaned up at the Oscars? That's a good movie that we never talked about, even though I talked about it a lot.
I think we will talk about it.
Dune.
Yeah.
It won.
It won every technical, which you wouldn't know because
Best
the Oscars
cinematography.
cut all those out.
Who was the cinematographer for Dune? Do you know?
Roger Deakins.
No, Greg Fraser.
Greg Fraser, that's right. Yeah.
I thought too.
No,
because
because I got him mixed up because our good friend Hans Zimmer, it was Hans Zimmer, right?
he did the score.
He
yes.
won an Oscar for it for the first time in like 40 years. 30 years.
When was the last time he won? The last time I think he won a score for Oscar, like a best score, was probably like.
It's been a long because it reminded me of the whole of Roger Deakins winning an Oscar for 1917 for cinematography, and it was like, this is Roger Deakins' first Oscar. It's like, really?
He has won The Lion King and Dune.
Yeah.
Which feels
weird,
very wrong.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of great scores in between those things.
Done. No, but I mean, this is also, of course, he won this one because
listen to some of these real quick, just as I lift these other awards he's won them for, because you're gonna be like, yeah, that makes sense. Thin Red Line, yep. Gladiator,
yeah.
Last Samurai,
okay.
Inception,
yeah.
Dune,
yeah.
Interstellar is a bad score. It's mostly giant, like he fell asleep on an organ kind of thing. Yeah. The Dark Knight trilogy. But he shared that with James Newton Howard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 12 Years a Slave, another great score. There's a lot of good stuff here, so it feels wrong.
Dune really stands out because it feels otherworldly.
Yes, that's the big thing that I felt walking away from it. Is like it feels big and dense and like a great use of like
it
ethnic instruments.
Yeah, and it allows itself to be weird too. Mm-hmm. Like one of my favorite scores, we'll talk about it when we talk about Dune, is when they're on Secundus and it's the Mongolian throat singing, the
when the Sardaukar are getting all geared up or whatever.
That is still one of my favorite sines in a movie in years.
Yeah.
Just like
it's so weird,
only
dark and scary.
Denis Villeneuve would allow that to happen in a mainstream movie, and I had to rewind it several times. Like, no one does this anymore.
Yeah, even like the voices of the Sardaukar, like they're all artificially deepened.
Yeah,
and it's weird.
It's great. Yeah, and I think him working with Villeneuve, those are all notes from him being like, go big, go like
Hans Zimmer is one thing he's very famous for is when he's particularly doing a certain type of score, like he'll build new instruments, like new kinds of giant drums that are like completely infeasible to build and move, so he'll have to build it in the scoring stage and leave it there. Like for Man of Steel, like one of the things he did was he built these big like the Man of Steel, not the piano one, but the these big kind of low but like really low versions. They built like a giant kind of one string bass where you just whack it and like move the notes up. It's really crazy to look at or whatever. Giant frame drums. He had like 12. He had like Questlove and Farrell and all these drummers come in to do the drum parts for it and stuff. Like,
which a lot of love to Questlove winning that Oscar for documentary. Got underplayed because of the event that we're running around.
Will Smith slapped Chris Rock in the face, and the internet shut down. Do you have a favorite meme about it? Because I have a pretty good one.
I mean, I think it's just been all of the different like people going out of their way to make different adaptations with it and everything. I guess it's not a meme, but like the fish from Shark Tale coming up and slapping his zebra from Madagascar.
Yeah,
I'm like that's a lot of work to do in the joke.
There was a hilarious. The funniest one that I saw was like there was like a TikTok where a bodybuilder cracked open a coconut and drank the water, and then another guy watched it and goes, well, that's ridiculous, no one would ever really, and he grabs the coconut and he tries to like psych himself up. He's like, I gotta like get in right heads with it to keep my wife's name out your and then he does
does break it.
It takes him like 4 tries, and that's a big old red dent on his arm, and then he does it, and he drinks it, and I don't like to laugh at some of the jokes. I don't think it's healthy that we meme everything that's a big thing in our culture.
But
when he said that, I literally I laughed out loud, like audibly to nobody else around here. So yeah. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock for making a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's bald head because she has alopecia. Okay, just making sure I got the right disease.
Right.
I don't want to say because she has
a
like
lot of
Parkinson's.
miscommunications and misunderstandings led to that. The irony around the whole thing is already this Oscars was kind of a bore and a disaster.
Yeah.
They cut out pretty much. Because I'll start off, as I was mentioning earlier, you would never know about Dune's big sweep of technical Oscars because they removed all the technical Oscars, including editing, in order to win back audiences.
Yeah, just to quickly go through: best cinematography, best film editing, best sound design, best production design, best visual effects, very much earned. Best original score.
Did it get adapted screenplay? No, it didn't.
Which is weird because
Did Drive My Car get? No, Drive My Car only got foreign.
I can see why it wouldn't win screenplay necessarily because that book is
It's only the first half of it too, so it's like technically you didn't do the whole book.
Yes, and also like when you read that book, and they keep it pretty close to the vest. They modernize some of the dialogue a little bit, specifically around Baron Harkonnen, who's a little bit more cartoony in the book, whereas here he's a lot more serious.
He's a lot more because he's played by.
But the screenplay isn't something I would just call like amazing or anything.
Well, I would say adapting the tone of the book and the largeness of this future is a success.
Yes, I agree with that.
And so adapting it that far. Again, we'll talk more about Dune.
Belfast won screenplay.
Belfast won screenplay.
Summer of Soul won best documentary. Drive My Car, international film. It is still kind of a best original song with No Time to Die. I remember that one. You didn't like that song very much, did you?
Not really. It sounded better live. I'll say that. Like Billie Eilish brought it live, and I just don't care for it.
The irony, another piece of irony, is Will Smith won Best Actor
for King Richard. It was his return. It was the Will Smith-assance.
Or
rather the return of the Willennium.
Yeah, I will agree. I think he probably deserved that award.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of King Richard, but I haven't sat down and watched the whole thing. But I'm willing to believe he absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
And because this was, I guess we'll talk about it because it has to do with that. I just want to make a clear point. Setting up why this was such a big deal, other than I think it would have been a big deal regardless of when, is that the Oscar committee and everybody involved and the ABC and all that were already like, we're cutting out all the giant finger quotes boring stuff out. So everyone will watch more celebrity stuff. And it's like, no one watches the Oscars for that. This was really a bad idea. Like half of the great things that I was excited for got cut out.
It's like when the Grammys, because the Grammys do this too, where they cut out the rock and metal awards, so you never see ever who wins those. You haven't seen like them air that on TV. You have to go down to like Applebee's down the street and pick up your award or whatever.
What?
And when they do nominate someone for rock or metal, it's always like either like an indie band, or the metal awards are like Metallica put out a new album or Iron Maiden put out an album. Just give it to the old guys.
Yeah,
it really sucks.
That really sucks.
Yeah, it really sucks when you're like listening, like, do you guys see the new Spirit Box record? It's amazing. Imagine like the rap awards always being like if Run DMC put out a record, and like, give it to them.
Or just Eminem brings out a new album, they just give it to Eminem.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but
Eminem is still kind of current. He's still around or whatever.
I mean,
but like I can't remember the last time. Like,
I mean, we're reaching an era where it's like, he's not 20 years old.
Yeah, they haven't aired the hard rock or metal awards on national television for like 15 years.
Do you think that's just because of radio changes and stuff like that?
I think it's because
there was a time when that was
first of all, don't get me started because I'll go on a big 30-minute rant. But I think it's because rock and metal has kind of a weird stink on it where people are like, this is your guitars go chum chum chum. Like really cool, like hip happening bands like play Fenders through like weird
distortion
through like weird boutique amps like Jack White or something. That's real rock and roll, not this heavy junk. Give it to the old bands because that was back when heavy music was good. if you have a blast beat in your song, you can't possibly win. It was one of those things that when I remember like when Lamb of God won like some Grammys for their work, I was like, that feels right because they're an amazing metal group of so anyway, I don't want to get started. It feels like that though,
right?
Because like I think it's still a crime we don't have a best stunt performer and best group stunt work or whatever, because those people, like in the last like 2 years, we've had some stunt people die on the set of these movies, and I think it's kind of a crime that we haven't acknowledged what they do to make our movies fun.
And they also get, as from one of my other favorite podcasts, We Hate Movies, Chris Cabins, called The Farinas, which is a reference to Dennis Farina not getting noted in the memoriams.
Yeah.
So he made a list of all the people that got Farina'd at the Oscars. Like, they didn't bring up him. They didn't bring up him. They didn't bring up her. All these people were great, and they don't get on the memoriam.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, those stunt people don't.
Yeah.
They didn't give it to the filmmaker, the Renaud brother, who died in Ukraine. I feel like they would have obviously should have put him up on there, and or the lady that got shot on the production right there. I mean, that was a time to make those notes, and I think they wanted to be as safe as possible. Everyone's being safe as possible.
Yeah, but so the Will Smith event kind of eclipsed all of those things.
They were trying so hard to make it as mediocre as possible, and then that happened, and now it's like the most infamous thing.
Also, didn't they have like three?
Time.
I can't remember. Didn't they have three hosts?
They
Amy
did.
Schumer and
Amy
Regina
Schumer
Hall and Wanda Sykes.
Wanda Sykes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. You wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
because all their jokes were really bad. I mean, Wanda Sykes is awesome. She's always great.
I didn't watch the awards, so I only saw like snippets of like when Dune won best
I did sit
cinematography.
down,
I saw like a little thing of that.
I did sit down and watch it, but the irony of that is I was watching it on a stream, and my stream failed around the time the slap happened.
So you were just like,
so I got up, went to the kitchen, grabbed something, came back. About that time, Questlove had won like best documentary. I was like, all right, let's go on Twitter, and I'm like, what the fuck happened?
The world ended.
I didn't see anything that happened. I went back and I was just like, what? So I was completely thrown off.
Yeah, and after it happened, the internet descended with a million. First of all, you have to say something about it. You have to have a take.
It has to have some deep micro level.
I resisted the urge very early on to like have an early take, because I wanted to like let everything settle. A bunch of my friends had different things to say about it. A lot of people turned it into like a political thing, which I thought was super cringe, in my opinion. Like, it has nothing to do with your politics or whatever. They even tried to like twist it into like I even saw like a lot of like super left-leaning people being like trying to make it about freedom of speech or whatever, and I was like, no one's freedom of speech is being like, calm down.
Well, no, it's mostly a lot of people, like comedians going on there saying it's now open season for comedians, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe it should be. Y'all popular comedians have been nothing but fucking trouble these last. Anyway.
Yeah. So I think
because I mean, like, that happened, and then like what, a few months later, Louis C.K. wins a Grammy for best comedy album, and it's like, wait, he still exists?
Yeah, he's around.
What the fuck?
I did feel like that. I did wince a little bit when I heard that. A friend of mine, I think my friend, you know Jay Jackson, right? Like he said he said that on his Facebook or whatever, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah, I was like, look, I mean, I've let Louis C.K. go.
Yeah,
I did. But it's like, oh, you're trying to make him a thing?
On the scale of who's like the worst? Bill Cosby?
Bill Cosby, yeah.
And then like I would put like up here as like probably like, I don't know, like Mel Gibson just says mean things but never horribly like molested anybody or did anything like that.
I mean, he's a pretty shitty dude.
He is. I'm talking about like on a scale of shittiness.
These are like, when you're talking about scales, you're talking about there's a scale in between like the different sound volume stuff, and you're just kind of like,
yeah, it's like a line graph.
This is not aspirational versus
none of it's aspirational.
Because I did watch that documentary about Cosby, and whew, it's harrowing. Ugh.
Is it about his like history?
Yeah, it's about the whole history of his career, and then everything leading up to the.
Oh yeah, because like it had a bunch of black people talking about like his legacy, and how he was like the moral figure for like a whole generation.
And he was like this idea of he was this iconic character, and eventually that kind of turned on itself because he also became like this scolding father of the disenfranchised generations after the LA riots and everything, and being like, you don't know how we live. Yeah, you're a rich college educated like guy who mostly kowtows to suburban white folks.
Yeah, I think we could agree as comedians go, Bill Cosby is probably the worst of the worst. Everyone had a take about it.
Everyone
A
had a
lot of
take
people's
about it.
takes were that it's admirable that Will Smith stood up for his wife, which I agree. A lot of people were like, that doesn't mean you should assault somebody like that, which I also agree. It's
A lot of people thought it was staged.
A lot of people thought it was a conspiracy.
Oh
God! A lot of people thought it was staged or a conspiracy.
A lot of
theory
people made a
to
lot
make
of
the ratings better. That's not how it works.
No, and it definitely.
And it's been halfway
was.
through the Oscars. We're almost near the end.
Because they were like, "Oh, Chris Rock leaned in, all that." It's like, no, he did something because that's probably not the first time Chris Rock.
He leaned in because he
face.
probably thought that Will Smith was going to say something to
I think
him.
he knew he was going to get hit. He just leaned in to be like, all right, better turtle up. Because Chris Rock's probably been hit before by somebody. He's probably mouthed off and got hit again.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Because I think he was like, oh, fuck, it's coming, it's coming.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as bad as it could have been because he wanted to. Because I think a thing to make a point of is for the last several years, since Will Smith's huge career kind of tapered down after the mid 2000s, kind of is just
sure.
And he's now ends up being this laughing stock, like the whole poly romantic
Yeah, we got to talk
sort of
about
thing
that.
going on.
We got to talk about.
And I don't want to talk too much about it
Me
because I think
neither.
it's gotten way too toxic.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot of toxic masculinity nonsense brought in. A lot of people are calling him, oh, Will Smith's a cuck who his wife told him to beat him up while she goes and fucks another guy. I'm like, it's all disgusting. And I don't want to get into that because all of those are ulterior motives to more fashy, weird,
Well, I was even
traditional male shit.
Yeah,
And
I was
think
even
that
look.
stuff
I
sucks.
even kind of look at it more.
I don't
as
mean to be
like-
so vulgar about it, but
No, like I don't disagree with any of that. Like the thing that I was more concerned about was like Will Smith kind of became, and I think this is a perfectly valid thing. Like he talked about when he won his award, how like it's kind of natural in this business to just put up with people talking shit about you, and he kind of has.
I
been,
thought his speech was great.
I thought it was
great.
fine. There's the weird thing where it was like, God sent me here to make peace and love, and like, you just slap someone in the face. Maybe don't say that.
There's a little bit. I think he was still heated. I think he was still.
But like when he
heated.
talked about like in this industry, you're taught that people get to disrespect you and you just have to take it or whatever. Like he's turned into a meme on the internet and stuff as like the jilted husband who stays with his shrew of a wife kind of thing.
Right.
And I don't think this is what I talk about. Like our need to meme everything is not a healthy thing sometimes. Yeah. And like,
it sure isn't.
No,
Rob.
And
it sure isn't.
Contrary to popular belief, the "it's just jokes" defense only will take you so far because I actually believe you can infer a lot of what someone believes by what they make jokes about.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
And I think people who
And
pretend
also,
that's not true are
jokes and
lying.
memes are incredibly effective propaganda tools, as we've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, meme culture
Now, this
hasn't
been
successfully
propagandized or
radicalized
whatever.
like entire generations of people.
Yeah.
It's a great way to infiltrate people's minds. I'm not saying everybody who's out there making,
A
quick,
Will Smith meme is
quick-shouldered, jokes about this. I mean, they're taking advantage of a situation, or maybe there's no neurons about it. They're just like, oh, that was weird and funny.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not like secretly like doing something. About that,
I've seen a lot of people who have no problem with Will Smith doing it, and I'm like, you should have some problem with him doing it. And I've seen people who were like, y'all. This is the thing that really kind of bugged me. The worst take I think was a lot of women who were sort of like. I hope I have a man who loves me as much as Will Smith. Like it strikes me as the kind of woman who like starts shit at a biker bar and makes her husband fight like the Sons of Anarchy to prove that he loves her or something. And I'm like, that is toxic femininity.
I've not seen that take very often, but I have to imagine they're out. I know they're out.
I've seen it a couple of times
of social look.
Yeah,
all flaked off of. What essentially is, and my stance is, it is two very wealthy men having an interpersonal difficulty and deciding to make it public.
Yeah.
But that shattered so many people's brains that they're all like, but what does it mean?
Doesn't mean anything.
And I'm like, it's two rich assholes fighting each other.
And it's worth pointing out, like Chris Rock, after it happened, he decided not to press charges, and Will Smith did later apologize because, of course, he did.
Yeah. Both parties apologize. Both parties want to get it behind them. And honestly, like, aside from the stupid Oscar committee shit where they're like, oh, he can't be there for 10 years. You got to place all this ban. And everyone's rightly also like, yeah, but that didn't, you didn't have any problems with, Polanski and Harvey Weinstein and all that.
Whataboutism is never healthy.
It's never bad.
It's not the same. Yeah.
Right. It's not the same. But I also predicted this. Much like I predict everything about the news, everyone's already forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Because we have a collective consciousness and focus of a 3-year-old.
Yes.
Like I was like, oh, we're gonna get over this.
So I'm glad I didn't post a take.
Right.
Because I was really close to posting a take about it.
I did post a take.
Yes.
And it was because I'd been drinking a little bit and I'd been in a situation where I was like anti-bully right now. So I was like, you know what? Good for Will Smith.
Yeah.
Fuck him up. And I didn't say that, but I said something.
No, and
like
you
that.
also predicted at the end of your take that I don't use the word reparations, but
that they're gonna
apologies will be
made. Everyone get over this. And 2 weeks later, there's like a handful of people still talking about it, but mostly it's going to be forgotten like the last school shooting.
I don't even that kind of take didn't even bother me. Yeah, last school shooting. Jesus.
Yeah.
No, that kind of take doesn't even bother me. The takes that bother me was like I would watch someone like even political commentators that I kind of get some of my news from or whatever, being like this is an assault on free speech, and I can't believe anybody would like this, and like I kind of hate the like. People aren't like philosophical lawyer robots, only walking around thinking about things like consistency. And a friend of mine was like, what kind of precedent does this set? And I'm like, this isn't the Supreme Court. This is just people. Sometimes the right thing to do isn't the right thing to do.
Right. Sometimes you make a knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
Wait, are you saying we can't be constant thinking philosophical lawyer robots?
No.
Have you not been
exactly
on Twitter?
What I'm saying.
Have you not been on Twitter?
And
of course you do.
It's the same people. And now it's like open season on free speech and comedians. Right. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just some bullshit.
Right.
Like people are still allowed. Jim Jeffries is one of the most offensive comics you'll ever meet. I think he's hilarious.
I think Jim Jeffries is great.
And he's never like, well, I mean, I bet it's like someone will write a letter about one of his shows and they say they hate it or whatever. And he's like, he'll always go on stage like, hey, look, these are jokes. I'm going to say things that I don't mean on this stage. The only reason I'm saying it is to make you laugh or whatever. So like, I think that's a different thing. I do think it's appropriate to say sometimes, like, could you not make a joke about everything? Like, it's okay not to make it, it's okay to self-censor yourself a little bit.
It's
when I'm producing artists and they have like a 3-minute long guitar solo and I go, we're going to cut that down because it's too long or whatever. Like, it's okay to exercise a little bit of judgment.
I mean,
and
from
I think
personal perspective, like, that's something I've had to do in life. Is like that's one of my coping methods. My coping methodists. One of my coping methods and things is to make light and make jokes and everything. And people brought that up, like, you don't have to make a joke about everything. And I'm like that because in doing that, you're also devaluing human experience and being like, you don't have to devalue it. It's valid.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. It's the same with the meme culture thing. Not everything has to be commented on from an ironic perspective.
Bo Burnham has a great.
I just watched his Inside.
Yeah. Oh yeah. How was that experience for you? Bo Burnham has a great joke about
filmmaker.
Really great. Bo Burnham has an amazing joke about like it's called Goodbye Tragedy, Hello Jokes or whatever, and it's about how like are comedians heroes or are we just animalistically pouncing on human tragedy and marketing it so that we can, it's not being an animal like capitalizing on the worst human tragedy. It's being a hero, and he crosses his eyes like an idiot. Like it's a really interesting song or whatever.
Well, it's also the thing he had about I'm coming to save the day with content, and it's like I think it's a problem. We just have to make content out of everything going on.
Yeah.
The last things I'll say about the Will Smith situation, because it'll be talked about next year and all that. My perspective on it is it's two rich guys got into a situation. The interpersonal connections mean nothing to me. And primarily when something breaks out between two black guys going on, it ain't my business as a white guy. It's not my business to deal with it. I stay in my proverbial lane and my comment stays completely on the other side because way too many people got way too close to two people got way too parasocial with it and got too emotionally mixed up in it. And it's like, it was a shitty, uncomfortable
Not everything
moment.
Is a commentary on our society, and like means like not everything needs to be racialized or like categorized. Sometimes things are just things.
You can, but I mean, like, I heard probably one of the worst takes I saw was someone made some comment about like, this is why, Will Smith's reaction like that is why we have something like Ukraine. And it should be more like, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Yeah.
You are so pilled on constant political content that you're just like, he's, you know,
You view the world through political glasses. Nothing is not political.
Chris Rock is like Zelensky, and I'm like, that is the most brain rot thing I've ever heard in my life. Well, we got it out. We talked about it.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's 2-3.
Let's not talk
weeks.
about Ukraine.
Yeah, let's not talk about Ukraine.
Although Zelensky was a comedian, I always keep forgetting about that.
He was probably like
he did a bit on television where he planned to play a piano with his penis. It's very funny.
He's also a great dancer.
Yeah,
him and his wife are great dancers too.
Do we want to talk about Ezra Miller imploding his career and the DC moving their entire schedule around again?
Yeah, we might as well.
Yeah.
I hope after this, somebody sits him down and says, "You're going to therapy."
Yeah.
They need to go to therapy.
I've waffled back and forth on, is Ezra Miller a cool bohemian just dude, or is he like a I'll send the salad back man? I'm leaning towards send the salad back.
I think they are clearly.
Oh yeah, we should say I if I misgender the person during this, it's not intentional. It's just I just recently figured out like 2 days ago that he identifies as gender queer. I believe.
Yes, gender queer. So they use they them pronouns. It's kind of hard to. We're all learning. It's kind of hard to be.
Which I believe was
given
one
that
of the
primarily they play male coded characters in like they them
superhero
but
movies. Yeah.
Barry Allen is a he.
Yeah.
And so that can get kind of, but Ezra Miller has had a long history of being abusive and a long history of being.
So the first thing I know is
and,
him like choking that lady.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago.
And
or
he has
3
a
years
history.
ago.
He had a history of that. That was just one time it got filmed.
He has a history of this?
Well, I've heard that like apparently
Okay.
he gets really aggressive.
Yeah.
And then now all these drunken events like the one in Spain where he's like
2 in Hawaii as well.
Was that them or was that somebody else that was like, I'm going to kill you?
No,
Was that Ezra
in
Miller?
the first Hawaii incident, he like broke back into a house at a couple that he was staying with and said like, I'm going to kill you and your crazy girlfriend or something like that.
Right. And he threw a chair at somebody.
Yeah, that was this most recent one.
Was there another actor that got into a kerfuffle recently?
Russell Crowe every day.
Russell Crowe's doing better. Or to quote him, here's my address. Come find me. I would love to talk to you about my passions, which is the greatest threat I've ever heard in my life. Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yeah.
I would love to talk
I also
to you about
remember him whacking him with a man with a phone at a hotel. Sorry, not good.
There's somebody else that got into it recently, and it was a big deal. And they're like somebody on the up and up.
I don't know.
I don't recall. But Ezra Miller certainly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are probably concerned about Ezra.
Well, apparently DC is having big old meetings about it and stuff, and I'm like, okay,
it ain't good for the brand.
No, it's not.
And,
but like,
it ain't good for keeping your, one of your actors who's playing a big role, who's essentially enough A-lister.
Yeah, I would say now he probably is.
Yeah.
After these, like he's had.
But I think after all the way back with what is it? The one of Emma Watson, the book
Perks of Being
a
Wallflower.
Wallflower. That kind of put them off on the huge trajectory. But that's been a long time ago.
That was like 2014.
Okay, that's
13
enough.
Yeah, but he's been around a while, and this comes right along with news. So what happened is Warner Brothers just got bought out by Discovery, this big Discovery merger, or whatever. So now the new CEO of Discovery has said like, and this was reported on in like a lot of big publications, which makes me think that it was like purposely leaked so they could get this idea out there and put the feelers out. Is that we need to overhaul the DC universe. There is a lack of brand that DC has, and for all their individual success with movies like the Batman or Aquaman or all these movies that might be like in a vacuum successful, there's not a coherent brand strategy behind the company, which he's probably right about. And there's going to be a quote unquote overhaul of DC, and I cannot help but wonder that this is all falling right as Ezra Miller is like imploding his career.
Oh, real quick, Barry Kagan also got arrested in April.
That does not surprise me.
Yeah, we'll talk about Barry Kagan coming up. We might have to add something at the beginning to say we're going to talk about the Batman.
Yeah. We're talking about the Batman. Here we go. We're going to talk about the Batman today. I'll edit that earlier.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So this is obviously causing a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what to say about it, to be perfectly honest with you. I think, like, he's, like I said, he radiates send the salad back energy, which makes me feel like he's an entitled kind of bohemian man who wants his water a certain degree or whatever. But all the interviews I see him in, he seems funny and endearing. So you don't know. You never know.
I think it's clear that they have some kind of issue going on. They have something mentally, they have some kind of emotional instability and emotional thing that's not been documented or they're trying to keep away from. And that there's this pressure is just mounting and mounting and mounting, and they probably need to see a counselor or see a therapist.
They probably need to go to therapy.
Agree with it, actually sit down and listen to the therapist. There may be some narcissistic situation going on here. A lot of people with narcissistic difficulties tend to want to avoid therapy because they're like, I don't need that shit. Well, you just smash someone's face with a chair, so that's not normal behavior.
Maybe
you might need some help before they end up actually in jail.
So the big thing that
you can only get so many strikes.
The big thing that people are worried about is like, well, how is this going to affect the Flash movie, which is coming out? Because, like, and what's it, Andy Muschietti?
Andy Muschietti,
yeah, or whatever. He's the guy directing it, and everyone's like, the movie's done. It's in post. Like, what if this keeps getting further and further out of control? Like, what if it keeps happening so much that they're like, we can't release this movie because he's a completely I don't want the thing that I think will be worst case scenario is Andy Muschietti being like, I have to reshoot this movie because we can't have Ezra Miller in. Yeah, or whatever.
Which I don't think they're going to.
No, I don't think so either. But that's the big conspiracy theory about what they think is going to happen.
Well, I think they're reaching a point, especially with everything post-COVID or current COVID or COVID adjacent, is like we just put it out there. We'll see what happens.
We need content, which goes back to like the thing of like DC has no brand strategy or whatever this guy's talking about.
We look at what happened with Morbius.
Yeah, I saw that movie.
You weren't part of Morbius sweep. #Morbius sweep.
It was fine. It's whatever.
Yeah.
I think I kind of
thought you'd be pretty forgiving on it. I'm not surprised.
It's
I've heard it's pretty piss poor for all things.
It feels like it's from another era, but it also
got chopped to hell.
Yeah, and it had a bunch of reshoots or whatever.
It got an entire universe reprogramming because they were going to focus it more on like the Venom MCU sort of thing, and then they
reshot their entire post-credit sequence with like the Vulture and stuff.
Well, the Vulture was actually supposed to be in the movie. And they had him in the trailers and everything. It's like, nope,
that's not it. Yeah, that's not in there.
Psych.
I feel kind of bad. I feel like Jared Leto has become kind of a whipping boy for some people. Most probably because of like Suicide Squad and like rumors about like constant method acting or whatever. I've heard some of that's not entirely true or whatever, but I definitely know like on like Blade Runner 2049, like he made himself wear like contact lenses so that he couldn't see and had to be like kind of guided around the set or whatever.
Well, it's like I've heard that with Morbius, he like stayed in the wheelchair even to use the bathroom and stuff like that.
No, Morbius he said he didn't method act at all because he was like he found Morbius he found character
found Morbius like too close to himself anyway.
Yeah, so he was just like, I guess I'll just kind of
dig anything.
But I
just have to wear a bat face.
But I feel like he's kind of become like this weird sort of out of touch dude that everyone sort of makes fun of. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think he's just like an eccentric artist who likes to do things. I don't get send the salad back energy from him. I only eat organic food and like energy from him or whatever. But like because the movie is it's perfectly fine. The action sequences are a jumbled mess of smoky, like phasey CGI visual effects.
I feel like they're also trying
he has this kind of echolocation thing, and they're super fast. And like this is an example of like when people say like. You know, when people say like Zack Snyder's movies are style over substance, and I balk at it, and like my hair turns red. This is style over substance. Well, I feel like
from what I've seen, they kind of borrowed some of Snyder's like slow motion build, and then pop, action stuff.
Not really. It's only the stuff maybe you see in the trailers for like one or two times. It's really just like when they fight, it's a big mess of like this kind of echolocation effect they have and stuff. And the movie lacks any kind of emotional center. Morbius like when Morbius realizes like, oh, I have this thirst for human blood, he tries to do the responsible thing, and like he takes this artificial blood that can kind of keep him satiated for a while or whatever. But this is an example of a movie that would be better if Morbius had a more clear antagonist. Matt Smith is technically the antagonist. A lot of people like him in the movie because he's kind of like the Robert Pattinson in Tenet argument we had, where it's like, thank God he's in this movie, otherwise it would be dry and droll.
Right.
I just think it's kind of boring. You know what I would love to see? I would love to see like Morbius and Blade.
Well, I think
but I wouldn't love to see. I wouldn't love to see him another one of these movies.
Right.
It's made by a guy who I really like too, who did that movie Life with Jake Gyllenhaal and that science fiction movie about a monster they find in space or whatever.
Yeah, vaguely.
It was like Ryan Reynolds was in it and Rebecca Ferguson, and like they find a little squishy little monster and like breaks this. It slowly grows inside of the spaceship and it's a great little kind of knockoff Alien movie with a bunch of A-listers in it. It's got some really great horrible deaths in it that
Cool.
I'm like, Jesus, like
all right.
his name's Daniel Espinosa. I wish all of the interesting tension he had in that movie made its way to this movie, but it doesn't.
But it doesn't quite do that.
Speaking of bat characters,
Yep, I've got nothing else. Anything else we need to talk about? We'll talk about another time. But let's talk.
Let's talk about a different Batman.
Talk about scores, man. Talk about scores.
Yeah,
This is The Batman, which is actually now, as of now, streaming on HBO Max, at least for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I almost watched it last night, but
Almost
instead
watched it
I
last
decided
night
to rewatch. I can't remember. What was it called? Oh God, Ted Lasso. That's it.
No, I mean,
I need wholesome content in my life right now.
that's absolutely fair.
But
I
let's.
started watching Outer Range.
Oh yeah, that's the one with Josh Brolin.
Brolin.
And is it an alien hole or is it Yellowstone? I don't know what it's about.
It's Yellowstone meets an alien hole.
Yeah, cool.
It's pretty good. So
I think
far.
that's a good. I want more of that.
It's pretty good. The end of the second episode really got me like, hey, what's going on?
So we were waiting for this movie for a long time.
Yes.
We watched it like a month ago or whatever.
Yeah, we watched it about a month ago. I will admit that is the only time I've seen it since.
Yeah.
I was meant to watch it again, but I will say
I've seen it twice.
Its length is now sort of a thing that keeps me away from it. I'm like, that's a lot of time to put into that movie.
It's 2:45 or something.
Yeah, but while I was there, as you remember, I think I turned and said I could stay in this movie forever.
It's one of those things like it's one of those things you gotta like get yourself into it first, and then
Right.
like once you're in it, you're like, I'm fine.
When we could talk about that as we go on. So this is Matt Reeves, the Batman. This is Robert Pattinson being the most Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
It is Colin Farrell vanishing into a prosthetic suit to become.
A lot of people
Big
think
one.
he kind of steals the show, and I think that's not an unfair thing to say.
It's an unfair thing to say. Zoe Kravitz doing the Catwoman.
A lot of people like her.
Paul Dano playing the Riddler.
We don't know if his name is Edward Nigma
No,
necessarily.
I think it's Edward Nashton.
Yeah.
I think they're sticking with the comic book thing to avoid the Nigma thing.
I don't know. I kind of like Edward Nigma. That's
Edward
a cool name.
Nigma. It works for a very comic booky thing, but if you're doing this kind of thing, we ain't got no place for any puns.
We're gonna talk about that the battle between comic booky and Oscar worthy realness or whatever, because that is something I've balked against a little bit. This movie doesn't. This movie.
I got one last little thing to say about the
Go ahead.
Oscars.
Okay.
Because I just watched a little bit of it the other day, and I don't really care what people think about it. You're telling me The Green Knight didn't get a single nomination for anything? Not cinematography, not costume design. You
So
kidding me?
cinematography and costumes, I'd see it for something like that. Best screenplay or best picture is a big ask.
Throw a nomination in there. Just make a note. Nothing. Wow.
I think that like if I
Ed
could,
Lowry's been on the Oscars before.
David Lowery.
David Lowery.
Well, he's Ain't Them Body Saints.
Ain't Them Body
gotten
Saints?
nominated for some stuff.
Hey, Ghost Story.
Ghost Story.
Ghost Story got nominated for something. Like Pete's Dragon got nominated for
Yeah.
visual effects.
If I can be perfectly honest, The Green Knight might be, and this is like going to go against
Because we already had an episode about
Yeah,
it.
this is going to go against what I said on my my review, but like I think maybe The Green Knight is too interesting a movie to be nominated for an Oscar.
That's fair.
Warts and all. I
Yeah.
think it's like some movies are too interesting to do it, and I think he's done his more accessible, dare I say, movies. I think The Green Knight, good or bad, is exactly what it needs to be because it probably made David Lowery very happy.
Yeah. Look,
to make
I've
it.
listened to interviews. It did make him very happy.
Yeah.
But I thought the same thing about Robert Eggers and The Lighthouse, but The Lighthouse at least got a nomination for.
Yeah. Robert Eggers is emo David Lowery. We're gonna see The Northman next, probably, and like that's probably gonna be a big, like, dark, brooding time, and I'm here for it.
I'm here for some gory revenge thriller.
I hear they fight mostly naked on a volcano at the end, and I'm like, and it sounds pretty cool.
Hell to the yeah.
Also, his Nosferatu is about to start filming with Willem Dafoe.
Do we know Willem Dafoe is playing the? Do we know that? Because I've heard rumors saying it's not.
I've seen like pictures and stuff that made me say otherwise, but
also don't forget he played Nosferatu in Shadow of the Vampire.
Maybe that's why it's perfect though.
He played.
It's pop culture and art. It's pop culture and regular culture, like entwining or whatever.
But that's already what Shadow of the Vampire, which is a
Don't
movie I would
overthink
recommend,
it.
is about. Is about that. Anyway, we're talking about the Batman. Talk about bats.
No, bats and
Talking
bat
about
creatures and
bats.
vampires.
Talking about something in the way of a Batman.
Yeah.
This is set 2 years after the establishment.
A lot of people thought it
Batman.
was going to be in the 90s. It is not.
No, it's not. It's current.
Yeah.
Current enough.
Looks too nice to be the 90s.
Yeah. Nirvana does exist.
Yeah. Nirvana's in this universe.
Yeah, Nirvana's in this universe. Great music choices. I think that song in particular, you could clearly tell that when Reeves and all the writers and everyone were like, this is the
song,
leitmotif of this Bruce Wayne.
That song lends itself very well to this sort of quasi-noir style.
Because it is very much more noir. It leans more into a Batman Returns, Frank Miller kind of thing, where he's narrating.
Well, Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight Returns.
I think I saw this movie very analogous to, like, especially the way he talks about Gotham as an entity, very reminiscent of Batman Year One.
Yes, because they said that Year One, Long Halloween, of course.
Because Batman Year One is also set beginning of his career,
and something called Ego that I think Dwayne, what's his name? He passed away. Dwayne McKay.
I don't know.
Wrote. I looked at a little bit of Ego. I liked it, but the Reeves said these were the books that I looked at and that I let Robert look at.
A little bit of the Long Halloween too.
Very much a little bit of Long Halloween because it's a gangster story primarily.
Yeah,
there's quite a few stories going on in this.
Yeah, but it's very Year One, and from the opening, maybe not the opening of the the opening. Like when does he start his monologue or his voiceover? It's like right after the opening scene with the Riddler.
Yeah. So after that,
he starts talking about like how, like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but like Gotham City is a cesspool, and it reminds me of like one of the opening lines of like Batman Year One. I'm paraphrasing or whatever, where he's like, Gotham City, it almost looks nice when you're far away, and he goes, you can't see the cancer festering inside of it. Like, you get to get up close and personal in this city if you want to make a change. There's a great scene. I was kind of hoping they would do it in this movie. They do some versions of it. Like the references to Batman as an entity in the movie are very sparse, but like you'll go into an apartment and see like, who is the Batman?
Right.
What is the like little newspaper clips. There's a great scene in Batman Year One where he shows up. I think it actually is because Carmine Falcone is in this movie by John Turturro.
That's weird. Different people. So it's always been Falcone. But in this movie, they're saying Falcone.
Oh yeah, I mean,
but it's always been Falcone.
Yeah.
So I don't. John Turturro is playing Falcone, and also
really good as well.
Oh yeah,
Last time someone played him was Tom Wilkinson. In Batman Begins,
and also Sal Maroni is discussed a lot,
but not seen.
Is not seen. Was played by.
Was there an actor that plays him?
Mm-hmm. In
the Dark Knight. Yeah,
it's that one actor that's usually in a bunch of things. He's a good actor. Very.
I can't remember who you're talking about, but I know his face.
Yeah.
Like I can see his face right now as you're talking about him. Two-Face kills him
Right.
in a car.
I think, yeah. But that makes me think that they may bring that character in later. But.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. There's a great scene in Batman Year One where all these mafiosos and mob bosses and enforcers are having a big old dinner, and the Batman comes to their house, and he goes,
Eric Roberts.
Yeah. The Batman comes to their house as they're eating this really extravagant dinner, and he goes like, "You fed on Gotham," and like he ends up descending into like their dinner table as these lights are flickering, whatever. It's really peak Frank Miller, like the lights blink and he's gone kind of thing. But he's like, "You've descended on Gotham City for a long time. Like it's time you paid the price or whatever." And he puts his hands over the candles and everything goes dark or whatever. I was hoping something like that would happen, but that would be like a introduction.
Right.
Where it implies that this character he's been around for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
But when he starts his opening monologue about like October something, and he goes like the days are all bleeding together or something like that, and he starts giving his little voiceover monologue. I'm like, this is like hyper Batman Year One or whatever, which is it's
Batman Year Two, so it's enough. It's close enough.
Yeah, and it's a lot of hyper fans of Batman. Like, can we draw from another story besides Batman Year One? There's a lot of Year One in Batman Begins.
Yeah,
but aside from the Ra's al Ghul stuff, it's very reminiscent. The part in Year One or in Batman Begins where he goes up through the police station with the bats. I think that's in Batman Year One. Like there's a lot of that in that movie. So a lot of people are like, it feels like we're kind of retreading the same ground. Right. But I will say that Matt Reeves makes it different enough that by the time we were like 40 minutes into the movie, I didn't care.
Right. It's not so origin that we're watching Thomas
By the way,
and Martha Wayne die.
This is full spoilers. This movie's been out for a while, so we're not going to
talk about it. But it's not that much of. We're far enough to see that, and we're also told enough about his ability by what he can and cannot do. There's the great scene later where, because another thing is people brought up, there's quite a lot of humor in this movie. It's just hiding under the grime.
I guess there's a little bit
when he has to use the squirrel suit, and he's like, I don't know if this is gonna work, and he beefs it.
Yeah, that was a thing where like, I have one overarching criticism of this movie, which I'll get to later. And the rest are just mostly positives. I find a lot of the characters who are funny are like the supporting cast. Andy Serkis has one or two.
Colin Farrell, of course.
Colin Farrell. I love the part where because I just laughed because, God, he's really good in this movie when it's right before that big car chase happens, which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
And he sees the Batman over behind the car, and he fires an Uzi, and he goes, "Hey, vengeance!" He calls him vengeance.
Hey, vengeance!
Yeah, trying to steal my money or whatever. I love how he just chews on all the scenes. I think Colin Farrell's amazing in this movie, and I'm glad he's around at the end of this movie.
He's around at the end of it because he's a character who's now gotten pretty much. The pie has been given to him, and he brought it. Like, again, it's a role.
He's unrecognizable.
He's unrecognizable. It's like it. I don't want to say it's exactly this, but it kind of reminds me of like John Leguizamo and Spawn, where you're like, other than
it's better than that.
It's better than that. But it's other than his voice, you would not think that's like Cuban Dreamboat. John Leguizamo,
the guy from Chef.
It's like the clown.
Yeah,
it's not that. It's way more nuanced, but. Farrell's voice work is really good. His dialect is great. Hey, come on, sweetheart. What do you want?
Yeah, but like he's
menacing enough.
He strikes a nice balance of menacing, but also like just slightly an idiot. Like just enough.
He's the smartest goon you have.
Yeah,
but he is a goon,
and he could he definitely has enough ambitions. Like that even comes up later when he's talking to Falcone. He's like, maybe I'll take over or whatever, and he goes, "Oh, you think you're the big man now?" It's like, I'm the one who's kept you safe all this time or whatever.
Right.
But yeah,
there's a lot of risings in this that are happening. So the basic plot is
I don't think we'll see this guy with like a monocle ever.
No.
But
because he's what we do with the Penguin is the sliding scale of Batman the Animated Series Penguin, where he's a sophisticate You know,
He wears a tuxedo.
He wears a tuxedo and talks
and a cape sometimes, and has a cane,
top hat, and everything. It's just, but you know, he's a deformed man. And with
But then we have Batman Returns with Danny DeVito,
or in that where he's literally just a monster.
Yeah.
Like he's literally a terrifying monster. That is the creepiest. So one of the things I thought, we'll talk about this, but one of the things I was just like is with this movie, The Batman. I see like Lego toys and things like that, and I'm like, this isn't a movie for kids? But then again, has Batman ever been a movie series for kids? Because The Batman Returns,
you
could go to Burger King and get a little toy.
Batman
with the
Forever
penguin.
and Batman and Robin are the most guilty of that.
Yeah.
Snyder's are action packed. Justice League more so, but his Ultimate Edition of BVS is not for kids.
No.
Especially because there's more blood. There's like more.
Batman Begins is a little more toyetic.
It is, because this is the big problem with people who make Batman movies is they want to have their cake and eat it too.
Yes, they do.
And we'll get to that. Matt Reeves, I think, is on the lesser guilty of this scale. He doesn't look at comic books and go, well, that's juvenile. I'm trying to make a prestige film,
Right? No,
or whatever.
It's clear
but
he loves this aesthetic.
Yeah. Which is why the only thing I don't want to talk about my negatives yet. I'm going to talk about the positives.
Let's
There's a lot of good stuff.
Let's
yeah.
talk about the movie real quick.
The one thing that you and me both laughed / giggled in giddiness at was, and he goes, where he's like, the criminal element never sleeps. And he goes, but I can't be everywhere. And he goes, but they don't know where I am.
Yeah.
And you see that the kid spray painting the Gotham Bank saying broke. And then he trips and his can of spray paint rolls up to this empty doorway, and I've never since The Invisible Man has an empty doorway looked so menacing.
Yeah, and the one where they're in the alleyway, and this is also all pushed up by the soundtrack,
The score, and Pattinson's voiceover and the filmmaking all come together to make a Giacchino.
Yep. Michael Giacchino's score. This is one of the best Batman scores since I think Tim Burton's, and it draws from it because that ba 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 does kind of rhyme the da da da. It's less flourishing, obviously.
It's a weird combination of that one and the Hans Zimmer one from like the BVS, because the BVS score was like dun 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 over and over again, really oppressive.
Kind of a saturation of all of it, but Giacchino's is so.
I think Giacchino's best score moments actually come in a lot of the quieter moments.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. The big one, like where he really sticks. I call it sticking the landing, where like your image and your score are perfectly synced, is the upside down shot of Batman after the car chase. I still think he should.
Where he's walking toward with a fire in the background, because the key colors in this is red and black.
Lots of reds and fiery oranges and like lots of deep darks and stuff. Yeah, I agree.
And that's where the noir element comes in, because this is also a Batman that does not. He hides in the shadows, but he's walking around, and I love that. Like Batman is known, and he's not afraid to just knock on a door and say, "I need to talk to somebody."
Yeah, he's very conspicuous.
Yes,
he doesn't keep a low profile as well as he should.
Right, and that's. Again,
and because he's new, right. I think, or because he's too hyper focused, and he doesn't think about those things.
Have, I guess, not been so large, other than, of course, I think everyone knows this. Other than he has gone up against the Joker, and has put the Joker away.
Yeah, we should talk about that scene here in a little bit.
And I mean, everyone knows it now, even if you haven't seen the movie, because they leaked the deleted scene and all that. So we know the Barry Keoghan thing and all that. Whether they'll keep Barry Keoghan, that's up to them.
A lot of people.
Because I thought he was just a placeholder.
I don't know. He seems to be a big enough actor that I don't know if that's a placeholder or not. But when you leak the deleted scene online, they didn't leak it. They released it.
They released it.
So like it makes me feel like they're putting out an extra feeler to see how people think, at least.
Right. But that's as much as we know about this Batman. He's not gone up against any kind of technical or supernatural element.
Yeah.
He's aware of Oz Cobblepot. You know, the Catwoman is new.
He's done his research, but he hasn't faced a bunch of threats.
Right.
He's faced like low-level criminals or whatever. And a lot of one theme of this movie is it's not particularly subtle, but is like the difference between one of the themes is vengeance. And like there's a big kind of thing at the end of this movie where Batman is forced to confront like did he's talking about like I had an effect here, but it wasn't the one that I was hoping I would have, or that I thought I would have.
Right.
Meaning, I'm trying to inspire the city to be better. Actually, you know what? He never really says that. He says that like I'm trying to destroy the criminal element, but I might have sent the wrong message to some people. So I have to take a little personal inventory.
It is all
here.
about how your actions of your own desire affect those who may be thinking similarly, but are going to take a different route.
Yep.
And I think that theme, as loud as it is successful because you see him just being like, I am the only one who's doing something.
Yeah.
To my actions have now caused something dangerous. To if there's anything I can do in my life is bring hope.
It's like when you hear like a far lefty and a far righty identify corporate malfeasance, and they're like, yeah, like these corporations don't pay taxes. Like, yeah, they're really pernicious. Like, yeah, and then the other guy, and the right guy goes like, yeah, we got to do something about this. And then one guy goes like, we should probably tax them more. And the other one goes like, we should get rid of all the Jews or whatever.
Right.
And then you're like,
It's
you went to the wrong thing.
It's like, you're right, man. Disney just takes over everything. Like they're a complete conglomerate. Yeah, you're right. They're secretly pedophile groomers. What?
No,
I never said that.
They're putting everything woke into their you identify the problem correctly and come to the wrong conclusions. There's a lot of that here.
You're all so close.
Yeah.
But this is because what we find out, because the movie opens with because I remember Matt Reeves saying like, you are going to.
Oh yeah, not for kids. Opens with a murder.
Opens with a very scary David Fincher-y killing.
I pointed at the thing, there's a part where the guy's watching TV. It's obviously the Riddler because you hear him breathing in his mask. At first I thought it could be Batman, but then when we saw the kids Halloween, the kid's about to go out play, I was like, is this the murder of the Waynes? Because I was like, yeah, I thought that was young Bruce Wayne. It causes
a lot of, you're getting a lot of similarities with it.
And then as we go into the apartment, there's this big open space doorway to the living room, and the guy's standing in front of it watching the TV, but it's black, and then it cuts to black for a second, and I instantly was like, the killer's right behind him. You can see the reflections in his little doomsday prepper mask or whatever, and then it immediately is, and he's just kind of looking over at him. It's the only time that I think Paul Dano kills somebody himself personally.
Yes.
The rest of the times he kidnaps somebody or drugs somebody, and then that's it.
Right.
Yeah. But he kills him with a carpet thing.
A carpet cleaner.
He whacks him over the head with it or whatever.
And then famously, as from the trailer, tapes his
face up and scribbles no more lies on it.
And he's just Paul Dano decided just to go full weirdo with it, and so he's all just taking giddy glee with it. Just he's
enjoying the ecstasy.
Enjoying it, or at least getting some kind of weird.
I think there's. I'll come back to that a little bit later. I think there's a reason for that, where he tells Batman I'm not. My talents aren't physical. I needed you to handle these things. I'm a thinker or whatever. I think that's kind of why, because it was his first time actively killing somebody himself and taking vengeance personally. And I think he was kind of I'm almost jealous of you, being able to just go out there and.
I feel like you and I are two of a kind, and we can help each other. We'll get to it. So this of course brings in Jeffrey Wright. As Commissioner Gordon, having what people have called is bringing my goth son to work day.
Yeah. I actually like that we've immediately gotten one of the advantages of doing this kind of a story is we're not introducing Batman. He's been around a while. I think that's fine. Kind of like how the Spider-Man movies never had to deal with the new ones didn't have to deal with Uncle Ben or whatever. Right. Just he's working with the cops. He's already working with Gordon. Let's get the show.
Not
on
all of
the
them
road.
like that.
Yeah.
I also don't like him because because let's just take a moment to talk about Robert Pattinson. For one thing, I stand very strong in I will take 5 movies of this Batman.
Sure.
I love.
It depends on what the movies are. We'll get to that. I'll get to my negatives, but
I love the way Pattinson plays his character. I love the way he plays his Bruce Wayne. And we'll talk about it because I'd love to talk about the sliding scale of Bruce Waynes in history.
His Bruce Wayne for right now and where he's at in his career in this movie is fine. There is the smart Bruce Waynes use Bruce Wayne as a deflection of guilt or a deflection of it couldn't be Batman. Ben Affleck's Batman is quite a good Bruce Wayne because he waffles between he's just He's kind of an idiot. Don't pay too close attention to him, and kind of beleaguered and annoyed that you're talking to him.
Right.
You wouldn't suspect that he could be Batman. Like this Bruce Wayne, I feel like some people could figure it out. He's very reclusive. It said once or twice in the movie, like the only person more Falcone says, I didn't think this event would bring out the only person more reclusive than myself or whatever.
Right.
So I feel like
he does not make social calls.
And because Batman is very conspicuous in this movie, at the end of that. At the end of the first murder scene or whatever, which is a great scene that lasts. I feel like it lasts like 10 minutes long.
And it's a good setup of a mystery because it's all he gets the card and it's what does this have to do?
It
with
has
you?
a lot of our favorite, like this should be on an episode of like movie cliches we love. It has one of my favorite cliches, which is the killer has a personal affinity for his foil, for his protagonist or whatever. He obviously has. We don't know that he likes the Batman necessarily, but
He's intrigued by him.
Yeah, and he leaves him little things because he sees a sense of like we're kind of kindred. So he leaves him these.
We don't know that till the end. That's what we believe.
Yes, but he clearly is leaving it. These are written for the Batman. Right. It says on these
you're
things.
Becoming quite a celebrity.
Yeah, and I also I love the fact that I got the first riddle.
Yeah, you're like
when I lead,
that one.
When he the first riddle is like, what does a liar do when he dies? He lies still.
He lies still.
Or, which I thought, I leaned that in. I went and saw this here, and I went and saw it with Sarah or whatever. And I went, and when it happened, I leaned over and I was like, he lies still or whatever, because I was so proud of myself. But his Batman is very good. He, I feel like, I said this to you several times, that cowl does not do him any favors. Needs a facelift on the cowl. Everything else, I'm okay with.
Do you think the cowl looks a little bulky on his small head?
No.
It kind of looks a little silly.
Every cowl, there's like a sliding scale of cowls. The best one is like Batman's cowl in Suicide Squad is the best one. You blink and you'll miss it because it's slightly different than the BVS one. The ears are a little bit more straight, and it kind of Ben Affleck's got a relatively large head. Yeah, kind of streamlines.
He's a beefy dude.
It streamlines his silhouette.
Okay.
This one makes him look like he has no nose, and the ears are too long and get too spindly at the top. He needs a comic book, like a sharp nosed cowl, which will improve the silhouette.
Which I've always thought Keaton's is really good, but Keaton's also looks like it was painted on.
Keaton's
is
good
like
in the second one. The first one, you could literally fit your hand inside of this cheek.
Right.
it's bad.
Well, and also he couldn't move his head in it.
That
so
too.
He just having to.
Yeah.
like someone picking up a mannequin and turning it around.
Yeah. So like I think that like the best cowls are probably like the one it's back in the day we didn't know how to make you turn your head or whatever. That was a thing in the Dark Knight movies that they literally made a point of being like, you want to be able to turn your head, Mr. Wayne, or whatever. So like the Dark Knight cowl is a lot more compartmentalized or whatever, and then Ben Affleck's cowl, it looks kind of like a classic Batman, but he can move his head.
And I like that in both in BVS, and it's smoother. It's just simplified. It looks more armored as well.
I mean, someone literally shoots. We get that in this one too. Like someone shoots Ben Affleck in the back of the head in BVS, and it clanks off the armor.
Yeah,
and this one
is good. So there's like, I like that. There is tech he's using, but we're not getting too gadget. And that was something you were like, I want more gadget. I want more of this guy doing it.
I want to see a batarang. I want to see him. I want to see him like knock a gun out of a dude's hand with a batarang, because that's classic peak Batman.
We get at least one thing that's like specific, and that's like the little. Well,
no, we get
the contacts.
Yes, but we get his taser.
Yeah, taser
on his hand.
Yeah, taser hand, which is pretty good, and the really great body armor.
Yeah,
that really great body armor works really well.
Which is a good, like we can. That's the first thing we see before we see him go to the murder. Is we see him fight the
subway fight.
Yeah, and that was the first example where like we had these shots of these kind of open looming doorways, and then we see these thugs harassing this Asian man, and we hear like these little slight steps going up the steps or whatever, and he comes out, and one guy's like, one thing is weird to me is that a guy says, "Who the hell are you supposed to be?" I'm like, it says he's been around for 2 years,
right?
And the criminals see the light,
right?
And they're afraid of these open doors. They know who he is, right. Like he's the Batman or whatever.
It's like, dude, my cousin is in the ICU after running into Batman.
Yeah.
Like,
they have a really great fight. Might be the best fight in the movie, because I feel like some of the other ones.
We got the fight in the club, but
that was all right. That's really just more of an excuse to get to Penguin kind of thing.
Right. There's not a lot of.
There's a great recurring
fisticuffs.
joke as he keeps getting into that club. Like those doormen are terrible.
Yeah. Some people think that's Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
I think if I'm not mistaken, one of those actors is one of the actors from Matt Reeves' Apes movies. Of course, Andy Serkis is also
right.
Andy
Serkis, of course,
but I think he's the guy who plays Rocket in the Ape movies. But I could be wrong. Yeah. But yeah. So that first fight is really great. It's a good use of his fighting abilities, his gadgets. He gets shot in his breastplate twice, and it literally leaves a big old magma orangey dent in it, kind of stuff. And one thing I do like at the end of it, because he's not as hardened as Ben Affleck's Batman, is he lets that last one go.
Right.
Because he realizes this kid's he's just a stupid kid. I wish he would have said something. I would have been like, don't let me catch you out here again. Or
why don't you go tell your friends about me?
Yeah, or just
anything. A good old don't want.
Put some fear into him, because it's so Frank Millery. One of my favorite Frank Millery jokes is, it's not a joke. It's like after it's from to see how much of Frank Miller's Batman has entered these movies. In The Dark Knight Rises, when Batman comes back, like his first reappearance. There's these two cops, and everything blacks out, and there's an old cop and a young cop, and the old cop goes, "Oh." And he goes, "Is it?" And then he sees like the motorcycle, like the bat cycle or whatever, and he goes, "You're in for a treat tonight. Like you're new on the force. You don't remember this guy." That's from Dark Knight Returns.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wait till you see this.
That's from Dark Knight Returns, and eventually, there's a big car chase in Dark Knight Returns, and it ends with Batman stealthing these guys in a warehouse, just taking them out one by one, and the last guy just starts opening fire, and Batman descends on him and just absolutely just beats the shit out of him, and the young cop comes up behind him with his gun, like, "Put your hands above your head." He goes like, "What are you doing? You just crippled that man." And the Batman says, "He's young. He'll walk again." And then he lifts him up and he goes, "But you'll walk scared, won't you, punk?" Or whatever. And I was like, I wish he would have said something like that. Put the fear of God in this kid, because that's kind of where he's at in his career. He's just fighting criminals and trying to let them know that you can't fuck around here.
And also, we get a lot of that because of the man that he is back home, back at the Batcave.
Yeah.
And it is just...
Batcave, by the way, connected by the train subway tunnels that lead to like Wayne Station or something, like Gotham Central Station.
It's a little bit of like there's a subway station under Astor Place in New York City that's discontinued.
Yeah.
But it used to be a way to get directly to rich people's houses.
Because it's not under Wayne Manor.
No, it's not under Wayne Manor.
We know
Wayne
of.
Manor. Do we even see Wayne Manor in it?
Yeah. We see him inside of it. I don't think we get a big old
wide shot
of it or something like that of it. But it's very gothic.
Yeah. And also we know he's so reclusive because when he comes up for the light, he has to wear sunglasses.
Yeah.
He is perfect emo boy. He is a very sad boy. His hair's terrible.
His hair looks horribly flat or whatever.
It's hilarious when he has to go out for like the funeral service and he looks like a cringy goth teenager. It's good.
It is good. A lot of people kind of poo-pooed on it.
But I think it's because they don't make a joke of it either.
No,
they don't
he's
make
obsessive.
A joke of it. Yeah,
when he takes off, and a lot of the scenes where he takes off his cowl, his hair is messy because he doesn't give a shit what he looks like.
Yeah.
He's focused on like when he talks to it's a theme that when he talks to Alfred. One of my small negatives. Hardly any Andy Serkis in this movie.
Yeah.
We only get one real scene of consequence, which is the hospital one.
Right. Before that, he's definitely having a big "You're not my dad. Don't talk to me that way."
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
And as he's talking about, he's like, "If you keep at it like this, there's going to be nothing left of you." And he goes, "If I can't accomplish this," and he goes, "I don't care what happens to me." Mm-hmm. That's the theme of this. Is like that's why his Bruce Wayne's it's a little shit. But it's okay because it establishes that his character is obsessive.
Right. And again, going to the scale of Bruce Wayne's.
Yeah.
And I would like to talk about this because it's a scale.
Give
When I
me
talk
your
about
rating.
the scales of Bruce Wayne's in terms of sociability in public versus not, he's way down there.
Yeah.
You know, you got your Adam West and you've got like Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne.
Pretty good.
Is probably one of the most canny, the most like connective. Mm-hmm. Val Kilmer's, I guess, is fine enough. George Clooney's is fine, but George Clooney's Bruce Wayne and Batman are almost
identical.
Whereas
Val Kilmer's is not.
Yeah.
Val Kilmer's is actually pretty good. It's just that I feel like your Bruce Wayne should either be if you're very reclusive, you draw a lot of attention to yourself. But I'll allow it. But I think that your Bruce Wayne should be a way to deflect suspicion from you.
And Bale does that very well because he's the one hosting parties.
My
at his
favorite thing
house
is in the Dark
supermodels.
Yeah, my favorite thing is in the Dark Knight. He's like, don't you think I should go to the hospital? He's like, don't you know what's happening at the hospitals right now? Like Gary Oldman can't even fathom that this guy could be Batman.
Right.
Even though he's seen half of his face.
Half of his face all the time.
Ben Affleck's Batman, I like those shoes. Is there the bathroom down here? He's kind of an idiot.
He's kind of like, I'm an affluent.
But if you corner him and talk to him, you could surmise, like when Superman corners him at that party and he's like, and asks him all these questions, the facade slips.
Right.
So you got to be careful. But that's because he's unhinged too.
And Michael Keaton's is certainly unhinged.
Yeah, he hangs upside down.
He is a lunatic man who barely can hide it. And then this one is not unhinged. He's just unhealthy.
Yeah, he's obsessive, and it affects his life or whatever.
He's not deranged like Keaton's is.
I would like to see him take a lift out of Bale or Affleck's kind of like, I have an opportunity I don't want people to find out because Alfred almost got killed in this movie, and I should probably deflect some of that.
I've now met people in my life there are consequences for my actions.
Also, there's an extra person at Wayne Manor. Boo. Who is this lady? Get rid of her. It's Alfred and Batman and no one else.
Wait, that's right. Is there like a secretary?
Doris or whatever her name is.
It's like, what are you doing here?
I remember.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I remember. I remember when he's on his way back, when he knows that the next target is going to Wayne Manor, and he's hauling ass back to that to the house. There's a part where you see him like screaming, like trying to like get her to answer the phone, and she goes like, "Tell me, like, it's like, get out of the house. Something bad's about to happen." She's like, "Something bad already did happen. It happened 30 minutes ago or whatever." Poor Andy Serkis.
I did it 30 minutes ago.
Yeah. But a solid Bruce Wayne for where he's at now.
Right.
I think his Batman is stronger because like I said, he's obsessed with there's a great Batman comic. I can't remember. I think it's like from some of the newer Scott Snyder stuff. It's like meant to be like a younger version of the current iteration of Batman in the regular canon. Now it's like the post Rebirth continuity, but like the one that's in the Justice League and all that stuff. Your main Batman,
right?
But it's like
a younger
version of that
continuity Batman,
and it shows him at Wayne Manor doing stuff. And it shows him kind of keeps glancing at the clock or whatever. He's in meetings. He's meeting this person or that person. He looks back at the clock. He gets in the elevator and he's kind of tapping his foot. And he's very kind of jovial almost. Like trying to deflect suspicion. And once he gets in the elevator, his face kind of changes. And he's just kind of looking at his watch, waiting to get home, waiting to go and do what he really wants to do.
Right.
And then it cuts as soon as he gets home and he turns on the lights, the Batcave or whatever. And then the next scene cuts. It's him raining. He's in the Batcave. He's prowling down on a rooftop, looking at some criminals about to do a bust. Really great way to build up. That's kind of how I see Robert Pattinson. He's just waiting to get back to the cave and do Batman stuff.
Right.
The only reason he's here is because Bruce Wayne should probably make an appearance, and the killer will probably show back up at the crime scenes that he's done before, which he does, by the way.
Right. I think that this Bruce Wayne he has not fully embraced the idea of, no, Bruce Wayne is the mask, I am Batman.
Yeah.
I think there's a moment, I think there's a little bit with Selena Kyle, the idea don't let that become you. Don't lose you to this thing. So more of these murders start happening. It's very clear there's a conspiracy involving this trust that the Wayne family had set up. And
what's it called? The something fund? Renewal fund? The renewal fund.
Renewal fund, yeah.
Which is essentially a giant money laundering scheme.
Right. They thought it was going to be this big redistribution thing, like we're going to redistribute this back into the social things and all that. And it turned out that the crime families got involved, and the corporate and the government got involved, and it got layway, and the money got laundered.
Yeah.
And all of the Wayne's goodwill got fucked over with that, if there was goodwill to begin with.
Let's trace the rest of these murders as we do this.
Because I'm going to need you to remind me, because it's been a bit.
The next one is Gil Colson,
right?
Who is the DA. They meet him at underneath Penguin's club, essentially, when Selena Kyle's doing her undercover work or whatever. Because Selena Kyle is concerned because her friend went missing.
Right, her friend or girlfriends.
Yeah. And
we're millennial Batmans. Everyone's bisexual.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
So Gil Colson lets slip that whoever this killer is, he's targeting people that know about a certain case they worked on, the Maroney bust. Or whatever.
Somebody talked.
Yeah.
And that's what led to Sal Maroni getting arrested, and it has something to do with now Falcone has moved in and has kind of taken everything. So there's a greater conspiracy, but somebody talked, somebody's the stool pigeon, someone's the rat.
Yeah. And we also noticed that there's a drug called drops in this movie, which I didn't really know. I didn't know if that was like a comic thing or anything, but it makes it. I don't think so.
It's a new narcotic that's kind of being involved in this.
Yeah, and it's apparently still around. And the big drug bust that happened, the big one in Gotham Police Department history or whatever, this big drug bust they had that destroyed the Maroney operation, apparently was like didn't get rid of this drug the way they thought it did, because it's still around if you really want it.
But this is a big hero-making moment. This is like the Gotham PD is back on top. All of our DAs and everyone involved saved the day. This is our landmark moment.
Yeah.
And it is much more.
And apparently there was someone in this.
Shady than
there was the rat in this case who was some sort of informant that made all that stuff happen. The next person that he killed. Well, the next person he kills is actually the police commissioner. Or one of the other guy, kind of big portly guy with the beard.
Well, I thought that was.
No, Gil Colson is Peter Sarsgaard.
Oh well, he kills him later because he's got the thing on him.
Yeah, no, he kill him first, and then he kills the guy who comes in.
No, I thought Skarsgård is the one that had the big bomb on.
Yes,
him.
that's exactly what I'm
that's
talking
later.
about. But he kills the other guy.
He kills the cop,
first.
that guy first.
Yeah, because that guy comes in and sees Batman.
The Joker when he kills that guy on live TV.
Yeah. That guy he comes in when Batman's there with Commissioner Gordon at the first murder, and he doesn't like that he's there. The guy's a dirty cop, but he's not wrong about like this guy's. Like, if I was a regular cop and I didn't know, and we lived in the real world, I would like, why is this vigilante here?
Yeah, why is there a weird caped man that I can't identify here?
Yeah,
walking around with his big old boots.
Yeah, and just everyone's like, he shouldn't be here. And the part of that scene,
the scene's also very funny because everyone's just kind of all Pattinson's doing just glaring at people.
Yeah. I do like that he's so obsessive, his mind is always on. Like when he looks down at the blood stain with that little angular thing, he's like that's the murder weapon or whatever.
Yeah, he's always scanning. We should know this is, other than parts of BVS, this is one of the first Batman that actually lives up to the world's greatest detective. Yeah. This is a detective movie. Yeah. This is very much a grimy noir detective movie.
I'm hoping that as we move forward, we'll get a little less of that and a little more superhero. We'll get to that in a second. But but that whole first scene, I love the way it ends too. Is like as Batman's walking on, he looks over and he sees the kid, and Gordon says, "Kid found the father." Or whatever, and Batman looks over at him, and it's home for him.
It's a really good scene, yeah.
The kid looks at Batman, and he was like, ugh, like, scary.
But there's a moment where it's just like, and it shows Reeves' confidence. There's no one having to say anything. That it's like, you know what this feels like. Yeah, you know what this feels like.
So the next thing, that guy gets killed. He gives a police conference like, "We will not stand for this horrible attack on Gotham's, institutions or whatever. The killer will be found," and then like the next day, that guy's dead.
That guy's dead. Right.
That guy literally like he puts a rat thing on his head and lets the rats eat him.
Yeah.
So like I also it's interesting that Gordon is kind of so innocent in this movie.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
He's kind of shucks.
He's kind of shocked, but like he was a dirty cop, and he was like, yes. Most of them are like.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cognitive.
There's even a line
James Gordon is doing where it's just like, I don't know, Batman.
There's even a line in this movie like, "You telling me he moonlights for the Penguin?" Like, no, I'm telling you he moonlights as a cop or whatever. And I was like, yeah, like you're the extra job to him or whatever.
You're the pickup tips.
Yeah, and so as that happens, they all these great. I want to take a second to enjoy the atmosphere of this serial killer investigation, because like we love serial killers, probably too much. Yeah. Too many true crime documentaries capitalizing and making content out of people's horrible traumas.
Yeah,
and
we're
stuff.
always pulling the teat of collective drama because we want something that's close to a monster. Yeah, because it's more exciting.
But some investigations are genuinely thrilling. True Detective is an amazing serial killer hunt that lasts 20 years.
And that's one that also blurs the line of supernatural until we realize it isn't.
Yeah.
but it is so well written that you're just like, oh.
Well, it is. Well, if you get into like the fan theories, there is like supernatural fan theories to it. But anyway, I don't want to about what the Yellow King actually is or whatever. It's kind of like a Cthulhu-esque cult thing. But anyway, but
they never go further with that.
So as he is doing this investigation, the first clue that the Riddler leaves him, what does a dead man do when he lies? He lies still or whatever, and he leaves under that a cipher.
Right.
Very much
he lies. Zodiac.
He lies still, or whatever. That's the name of the. He knew that was the answer to the riddle. So he gives it to Alfred, and Alfred plugs in the cipher, giving him I don't know 6 letters to fill out like a partial cipher or whatever, doing a key or whatever. One of them was the next one was like drive. Or something was something that he got, and no one could figure out what he means because he cut off the thumb of one of the first person he killed. And as they're investigating his car garage, they find one of the car that has a knife in it. He goes in and he goes like what are we looking for? Like USB. And he's like, why are we looking for USB? And he lifts it up and it's attached to a thumb. And he goes, thumb drive. And then he goes, oh, it's fingerprint protected. And he hands him the thumb, and he goes, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, I love how, like he's such for a police, he's not a police commissioner yet, but like he's, for who Commissioner Gordon is in this movie, he's very kind of
like, oh, man, I gotta.
And as soon as
and Batman's just like, of course, take the thumb drive.
I'm always slightly worried it's going to edge too much into Batman just knows everything.
Right.
He already knows the answers. Because that's one of my things that I don't like, I've said about like Batman fans, is they just want Batman to show up and have the answers. I feel like we never quite venture over there.
We don't.
I want him to be.
He's pretty, like I said, he's pretty fallible in this. He ends up making mistakes and he ends up being reckless, and that's more interesting to me than prep time.
Yes. He has plenty of prep time in this movie. I mean, if that was what really helped you, that's not what helps you solve. He's doing grunt work. He's chasing down leads and stuff. Like that's why he's detective work is.
He's walking up to the ice chest or whatever and knocking on the door and be like, I need to talk to the Penguin. Talk to Cobblepot.
I love
Oz.
I love it. Yeah, when he first introduced, like, hey, how you doing? He goes, I'm Oz or whatever. So that's and as these things are going on, we're getting more and more. I'm trying to remember all the riddles that he leaves him or whatever. But yeah, he kills the police commissioner. I can't remember exactly what his riddle he leaves him in. The next one he kills, I think, is the most interesting. Is the DA, because we meet the DA at this club, and he's really loose lips for a DA.
Well, I think he's dropped up. Like, he's on like speed, and it's just because that's when he's met with
one of the prostitutes there is much smarter. She's like, y'all are talking about something. Hush, hush. Yeah. I should leave.
Yeah, because at this point, Selena is involved.
Yeah,
and she's been a burglar. She's a classic Catwoman cat burglar.
Yeah,
chaotic neutral, very much so. But she's concerned because this girl Anya or whatever is missing.
Yeah,
and is like, I need to find out what's going on, and
Batman says he'll help her if he does that. So she goes in and she's like hunting down everybody or whatever.
You have a lot of cats.
Yeah,
great line.
Yeah, it's pretty good. She goes, I got a thing for strays. So as they go in
also
there,
a great line.
As they go in there, we see a bunch of close-ups of a lot of people. Also, a cool thing about the eyes, they kind of identify people. Like they do little circles around their head and they draw
like
who they are.
Watchdogs, like analysis and all that.
I don't know how that works, but it's cool. And when Karma, that's how we introduced to
I imagine
Falcone.
They all have social media, and it just lets it just quick download, like, oh, your information's open anyway.
Yeah,
that's how we're recognize.
That's how we're introduced to Falcone. Is he walks up and it says Carmine Falcone,
and it's
So they let fly that there was a rat in the case, and then she wants to go ask about Anna or whatever. She takes off her things or whatever, and
because they're trying to work together, and she goes rogue, and it's just like,
and as she leaves the party, Peter Sarsgaard comes out and asks her if she wants to ride home or whatever. She says no because it's Gotham City and he's a drugged out man at night in an alley. Like, so no. And he goes to his car. The killer's in the car, of course he is. He knocks him out, and we see like this little scuffle happen in the car, and that's the last thing we see until the funeral. Where
that's when
a guy drives a car through the funeral.
I love that you can hear it coming, just and it just goes through the window of the church, and
That Bruce
crashes
Wayne.
in there.
I love that right before it happens, he looks up at the balcony. Everyone runs away, but you see one person still standing there, which is like I always love a good like the killer was there.
The killer was there, and it's clearly it's Dano.
Yeah.
He's got the glasses. And
I
all that.
thought I would have liked it if in this movie, because at the end he has a small group of devout sort of followers.
Yeah, he's a Twitch streamer.
Yeah, if he used them to sort of establish alibis. But like, well, wait a minute. Like, well, it couldn't have been him. He was here during this time or whatever. And
Well,
they hadn't thought there could be more than one of these people.
Right. And I think that's where you're supposed to go back to all the scenes and be like, was all of them Edward Nashton, or were some of those others the acolytes who actually like
most of them we know they are, because like the second one is the video. The first one is definitely Paul Dano.
Right.
So as we're going through all this, he comes out. He's got a bomb strapped to him. As soon as that happens,
It's a saw bomb.
Yeah.
It is a saw like.
Oh, it's awesome. It's a great idea.
It's
Yeah.
a saw bomb.
And as it happens, the first thing that should have happened was Gordon should have been like, "Get everybody the fuck out of here!" He waits a good bit before he does that. I would be like, "You need to get everybody out of here."
Is there a bit of like a flashback sort of thing that happens in this moment, or? God, it has been way too long since I've seen it.
No, what happens is they get everybody out of there. They bring in the bomb squad.
That's right.
And he has a letter on him that says "To the Batman." So,
it gives him a time limit to try to answer the thing.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is, first of all, the other commissioner comes up and he sees the Batman come up and he goes, "What the hell is this guy doing here?" Like,
there's that.
You working with him, Gordon?
There's that other guy, that skeezy guy. Is just he reminds me of. He's not that actor, but he reminded me of a different actor who does in comedies and stuff. And like, what's this guy doing here? Come on, and just like always having trouble. And then there's like the mousy young guy who keeps running into him and kind of admires Batman. He's like, hey.
Well, he finds him weird or whatever, and then but he likes Bruce Wayne. He sees Mr. Wayne. Like, oh, Mr. Wayne. Oh, great little piece of subtle symbolism. I wrote it down. During the funeral, there are these barricades set up, and as they're walking down, all the plebs are on the outside, and a guy is talking to another guy, and Bruce Wayne's right next to him, and he goes like, "Just another rich asshole got what was coming to him," and he was like, "It doesn't mean shit to me," or whatever. He tries to slip through, and a cop grabs him and like puts him back. As he is put back, the camera out of focuses and he descends back into the shadow of the people of Gotham City, basically implying like the people of Gotham City are an afterthought to these elites. They are something to be contained and not something to be taken seriously or whatever. A little piece of symbolism that I appreciated from Matt Reeves. There's a couple of little bit of those that make their way into the movie.
He's got a good visual sense.
Yeah, and so Gil Colson comes up. Batman he gets a phone call. He picks it up, and like it's like a FaceTime, and you see like Paul Dano just kind of like.
It's great. It's crazy. You there?
The Paul Dano's character has a bit of a shelf life. It gets good, and then it gets real good, and then it starts to rot a little bit near the end. So as he talked, he's like, "I've been waiting for this for a long time," or whatever. And he goes, "Please, will you just let me go?" And then he just descends into immediate screaming, like, "You betrayed the people of Gotham City! You be quiet, Mr. Coulson!" or whatever. And then he goes, "Let's play a little game," or whatever. And then he clicks a button and the timer starts, or whatever, basically making him answer all these riddles or whatever. And the last riddle is basically like, who is the rat or whatever? Like, who's the rat that did this thing? Gil Colson is so scared he will not give up who it is.
I'll die either way.
And then what ends up happening is time's up, it blows up, and Batman is like,
launched back. No harm to him.
Yeah, he wakes up in police custody,
right?
And someone tries to be like, "Fuck this shit! I want to see who he is." And then he immediately go like snap, like
nope.
It's like
rages out in that cop pen.
Yeah, it's like someone said to me, "The Snyder Cut doesn't exist." I was like, my eyes open or whatever.
It's like.
And there's a funny little joke. I think someone says like, you're about to get in trouble for assaulting an officer. He's like, "I'm about to be in trouble for assaulting 3 or whatever." Like that.
Assault a lot of officers. This Batman kid says ACAB.
Yeah, Gordon gets him out of there too as well.
We're forgetting a great thing, which is Batman in this cape floating around like he's running away from the cops.
Yeah,
it is very funny, and I think it's funny on purpose.
Yeah. So
he's just like, so, and that's when he jumps off the thing. With
there's a lot of cops in Gotham City. There was like an army of cops going up the thing,
and they want him.
And as he was doing that, he's like, "You need to punch me in the face and take this key, go through that door, and get to the roof or whatever." He doesn't know he has the squirrel suit on, so what is he hoping like what happens when he gets to the roof? You'll be
he's like,
you'll be cornered.
I mean, maybe Frodo's just like, surely this guy will figure something out. But then he just punches him in the face.
Yeah, and then like he's not even ready. Like he's
Right.
looking over here. Then oh god.
Well, that makes sense. Like he's not thinking about that. He's just like a weird guy, just like, all right, I'm gonna punch you now.
Yeah. He leaves. Do we want to talk about that squirrel suit? Because when he whiffs it at the end, and like he probably should die.
Yeah, he beefs it pretty bad. Well, that suit's pretty armored well enough, and I guess he was able to get some parachuting.
It is, but your bones can still snap inside. Just because your arm doesn't go to the left doesn't mean your arm didn't break.
There's something called internal bleeding.
Yes.
Some vascular damage. It's a movie, I guess.
Yes. Here, this is where I think this is the appropriate place to talk about my one real negative that I have. The only other negative is that like I wish we got more of him and Andy Serkis.
Right.
There's a couple of pieces that I think are really good, but I just wanted more. During like my big criticism of these movies, and I think Matt Reeves is a lesser offender of this. I think Christopher Nolan is probably a worse offender of this. Is the idea that Batman is somehow distinct from other superheroes, and that we don't really want to tell a comic booky story. What we want to tell is like a prestige dark film that could get a bunch of awards and stuff.
We want to make a drama, a heightened drama that we normally couldn't make with just regular people, but the Batman, who does not have superpowers, is our easiest way to get into it.
Yeah.
It's just as long as the audience doesn't think too much about like, this is a man running around in a bat costume.
Yes.
Because the moment you do that, you compromise the image, which is what it is. It's a comic book movie.
Yeah. And I think that, like I said, Christopher Nolan was very much everything's got to be real. Everything has to make
He is
sense.
the big offender of it. Granted, Batman Begins a little more loose on that, but by the time you get to
That's
Dark
why I
Knight-
like Batman Begins so much, because it's also like send him to a hidden monastery in the Himalayas where he learns from a group of ninjas, trips balls, and takes a fear-inducing drug where it makes everyone look like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat with crazy wide eyes, and like teach him how to instill fear. And that's comic book stuff.
Yeah, that's comic
not really
stuff.
superpowers necessarily,
but it's earned comic book stuff. And then when he goes back to Gotham, there is a giant rickety Bay area, like slum lord area that is the Narrows, which is not in the other ones.
No,
so that is a comic book movie.
Yeah, Dark Knight is just sort of like Heat.
Yeah, it's just a Michael Mann movie.
Yeah,
granted, a very good movie.
And The Dark Knight Rises, I think, is
somewhere in between.
It's somewhere in between.
And it doesn't, I don't think, succeed successfully in either.
It's
not bad. Not that bad.
It's all right. But like, I think that Matt Reeves is very much like, well, I like the comic book stuff. I'm just not sure about like superpowers. And I think, and I've always believed this, I think if you read any Batman comic, even some, I think people imagine that the only Batman comics that are good are like The Long Halloween and Year One
and Killing Joke.
Yeah, and then Killing Joke, because there's no superpowers in them. But you're totally discounting like The Dark Knight Returns, Hush, like 1,000,001 stories.
There's a Hush reference in this.
Yes, there is actually. I forgot about that.
And it brings up the possibility that character could show up at some time.
Yeah, and I feel like the reason I was a little bit kind of bummed when we saw the Joker is I was like, is this Batman just gonna be him fighting like doing detective work and fighting serial killers?
Right.
Because that's not all he does.
Right.
I know we like to think that's all he does because it's the easiest way to make a dark, brooding story.
But
God,
like, damn it, he fights Mr. Freeze.
He fights Mr.
He
Freeze.
fights Poison Ivy.
And Ra's al Ghul is an immortal man who keeps getting brought back through a pit. And he's fought Superman. He's done all these interesting things. The most interesting thing about Batman is not that he's is that he only fights like his threats are real world. It's that he's just a real man, or the most a man could be.
And
his threats are more than human,
right?
Sometimes
because they also
Clayface, big clay man.
They also have to go up against other superheroes. Yeah, like Green Lantern could mop up, a Mad Hatter, you know, and stuff like that. But there has to be a reason they're so powerful. And it's because they've gone up against a foe that outwits them every time.
Yeah, and it goes back to the argument of like, I remember reading this. It was a very sort of, and I don't think it's a bad take necessarily. It's a very like sort of social justice-y take on Batman, which is like, do we really want to watch this guy? Batman's bad because he beats up on poor people who just need more job opportunities. And I'm like, you're sort of ignoring the part like when we read a Batman story, subconsciously what we do is go like, well, this guy's a vigilante. Vigilantism is bad. Like we all know that. But what we're doing is in our head, we're saying Gotham City must be so bad that we have looked to a desperate sort of plea, like a character like Batman coming in, and we go, well, under this circumstances, this is okay because Batman is, we know where his heart is, and we know that like Gotham City is unique among the world for being crime-ridden, infested, and full of violence and full of very nefarious people. So we allow our brains to go, this vigilante it's fine, it's okay or whatever,
and he stands above it in all kinds of different ways.
And people being like,
for all intents and purposes, I mean, then Superman's a vigilante. You know, he's not a legal authority, but he fights crime.
They're all vigilantes.
They're all vigilantes.
One of my favorite lines in BVS, like, we're criminals, Alfred. Nothing's changed. Like, we've always been criminals.
Always been criminals.
Yeah. It's from The Dark Knight Returns.
Let's go ahead and see if we can.
Yeah.
Since we got time issues.
So like, I guess my only problem is, like, I don't want this Batman to get bogged down in an obsession with realism at the expense of all the other things that make the character so cool.
Well, it's like,
now this movie I said is a lesser offender because I think its style and its feel is more comic booky than say like The Dark Knight or something.
Even when there's like realistic stuff, like we could talk very briefly about the great chase scene, which is a huge height in this movie.
Yes, it comes at exactly the right time too. Because I think
we're
right
introduced
before that,
to the Batmobile, which is essentially a cooped-up coupe with a rocket in the back. It is very similar to what Darren Aronofsky's Batman was going to have should he have directed it.
Yeah.
It's a car souped up with a rocket on the back of it.
It almost doesn't work the first time.
It almost doesn't work the first time.
It breaks down for half a second. But it's like the music is swelling up and the car's...
And that interstate fight, like I was white-knuckling it. Like, that felt so satisfying.
It's good. And it feels mostly like... There's probably a few scenes where I'm like, I don't care how armored that car is. He's dead now.
Yeah.
But like, but I let that stuff go because there's plenty of moments in BVS that are exactly the same in his car chase or whatever. It's a lot more... It's very practical. They try very much to. I don't think anything happens in the car chase where it's like where it's super reliant on like big visual effects or anything like that.
Just some explosions, which are all easily done with miniatures and stuff.
But like that happened right at the moment where I kind of looked over at you and I was like, I'm kind of ready for I need
boost.
a big thing to happen. It doesn't have to be necessarily a fight, but like I'm ready for some spectacle, and that thing delivers in spades. It's pretty good. On the scale of like, do we want to rank the car chases? like we have this one. There's the one in BVS where he's after the kryptonite. There's the one in Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight one's really good with the truck, with the 18-wheeler and all that. And
are there any in the Keaton verse? I don't think so.
I mean, there's the one where he's driving at the parade when the Joker's putting on the parade, and he shoots him down with where he's got the bat.
Yeah, that's not really
the
a car
bat
chase
wing.
though. A chase implies like you're chasing something or whatever.
Wasn't there one at Batman and Robin when they're fighting the hockey team from hell? And Mr. Freeze has that big, like, silly, like, Freeze truck or whatever.
Yeah, I think for like a little bit, but I don't think it lasts.
It doesn't
long.
stand out enough because that whole thing is a giant circus act.
I think that this one kind of combines the best of like the Dark Knight is, like I said, it's very uber real, and the one in BVS is like this thing is a death machine,
right?
That can kill anybody. like he literally drags a car behind it, like he shoots a grapple into it and just drags, and I'm like the dudes in that car are dead, probably.
They're mush.
And then he drives it through. My favorite part is he drives it through like a building and jumps out the window, and a guy gets crushed horribly. And then he slides, like he loses control. This is this is like where Snyder is like, I'm trying to do like comic booky, and I'll sprinkle in the realism. Whereas Reeves is like the inverse, realism, but I'll sprinkle in the comic book. Whereas Nolan is just realism. It's like
the comic booky is that wonderful slow walk while the Penguin's upside down as the fire's going off and the cape is floating.
The comic bookiness is like Ben Affleck loses control of his Batman, it slides through that boat and just and it collapses, and you're like, oh, is he dead? And then he just machine guns his way out of it and is back like a panther or whatever, and it ends with Superman like just kicking it a little bit to the side and breaking it. And I appreciate that Matt Reeves is I feel like Matt Reeves just wants to, I hope, this is my best case scenario. He's just trying to be really careful and not do anything that's so like, this Batman's never going to space or something. But I think that this Batman could easily come into contact with someone like Clayface
Well,
or
they've talked
Mr.
a lot
Freeze.
about Clayface and Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
And the possibility that those characters could show up
Yes.
under some kind of iteration. I think
Or
that
Poison Ivy is one people have also
that would be
put out.
great. Something
No
like that.
Bane and no more. If you want to do the Joker, fine. Wait another movie.
Right, another movie. Yeah, keep
Yeah.
Barry Kagan and the whole. And if you got to do Bane, Dave Bautista.
Yeah, Dave
Batista's
Bautista
perfect.
stormed the DC towers and said, "I'm playing Bane. God damn it."
I'm perfect. And it's like
And you see me in Dune. I was great for those 2 scenes. But
that Duke.
so like I think I that's my only overarching negative. Is just like the movie worries me that like we're too cool to do superpowers or something like that.
I would love to, because I've had my thoughts of like the freeze gun and what it would look like,
Yeah.
and like how you can do this. You can do this. There's got to be a way to crack it so we can have something really challenging.
Yeah.
And it's like
It doesn't have to be like the one from Batman and Robin.
No,
where
it
it's just
doesn't
like,
have to be like a
walls
big-
of ice.
right, but it could be something effective, some kind of technology or something that defies science, and that's when it's like I have to prepare myself for things I can't understand.
Yeah.
That's
when Batman does his best work, when he's like up against it.
Right.
So I want to at least introduce
while
a little
also
bit
still
of that.
bringing this kind of compelling story as well.
Sure. Yeah. Like you can, like the tone of these movies are perfectly good. Like I have no qualms with like the tone, the performance, the acting. Let's
wrap up close to the plot because we find out, like, for one thing, Selena Kyle is Falcone's daughter.
Yeah.
He's a bad dad.
Pretty sure that's he is. Pretty sure that's just. I don't think that's a comic thing. I
No,
think that's
that
just for
is
this movie.
this movie. This is just this movie. He's a bad dad. Things bad with her mother and everything else like that.
Right before that, we get I call it the Planet of the Apes fight scene where we have like all the flashing muzzle barrels.
Yes.
Where he does that. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool because he's just like.
Did you ever feel during this movie that like the fight scenes are good, but they're a little kind of flat? I was kind of waiting
the
for like.
visual effects could made them a little better. The visual work made it a little more exciting.
I agree. I still feel like the best fight we get is that first one.
Yeah.
In the movie.
When I
'cause
think that's fine. That's good establishment, but it at least doesn't stay.
I was
boring.
hoping for like a bit more, like the last fight. I was hoping for a bit more skill.
Yeah.
Like I was hoping one of them like again like these doomsday guys on the top of this thing
Right.
aren't stupid.
Right.
I mean they're doomsday people, but like so they might be a little stupid. But like
Well, they're all on Twitch. They're all on Riddle.twitch.
Yeah, there's
saying
like
hey,
20 of 'em.
Great scene where
one of them's called Oathkeeper and stuff. Like it's very much
it's
like
very
it's on the nose.
That's on the nose. Yeah.
So like as we're having this big fight at the end, I would have been like, there's like 20 of you, a bunch of y'all attack him at the same time. Like I was hoping for that because like it reminisces to like the Batman warehouse where he's got to fight 6 people at the same time and dominate them at the same time,
Right.
and constantly be aware of his sense of space.
He's got to do that on this catwalk, but he's also like I can't just let them fall to their death, so I have to like grapple them.
Well,
and all that.
that's fine. I understand this guy's not a killer. Like
because
I
they get
understand
that moment when they have Cobblepot, I think, at the top of the top of that building, and Catwoman's like, just kill him. Like you do greater.
It wasn't Cobblepot. It was the dirty cop.
Yeah, it was a dirty cop, the rat. Because what's the word that keeps coming back? Larata.
Larata del Ada.
Yeah, because it's
which ends up being a website.
yeah, it's and
I would
also
never have thought of that.
the great when they finally pin Oz, and he's just like, "What are you talking about, Larata? It's a rat."
It's El Rata Delada. It's like it's la. It's feminine or whatever.
Not L. What are you talking about?
Don't you know you're Spanish? She's like, no, I don't. Like,
Well,
she's a cop from Gotham City. He doesn't know his Spanish. Or
it's
whatever.
it's a good scene, and it shows some nuance to that character.
Because it says URL Rata Laada. It was like URL, and then he types the website in, and he gets to talk to the Joker for a second.
Right. He has to go. Yeah, Anthony Hopkins. With
I
the
want to
Joker.
skip ahead a little bit because I want to make sure we have time to talk about this. I want to talk about their meeting because eventually what happens is he ends up. The whole purpose is the Riddler wants to lure Falcone out into the open so he can kill him.
Right.
That is the overarching goal. Now,
because he's one of the last people on the hits.
Yes.
Because now
He's the rat
Bruce
with
Wayne
wings.
is starting to become part of this as well. He's
Yeah.
like, though Bruce Wayne's involved in this in some way because of this orphanage.
so they find and so
the Wayne Trust and
when
all
he
that.
sees Batman, he smiles in the diner or whatever. When he sees the Batman walk up, he has a little smile. They send him to Arkham, lock him away or whatever, and they finally have their face to face. What'd you think about it?
I thought that it was it was good because it left so many questions. Dano's performance is a little over the top. There's the whole
like lots of screaming and yelling.
Just lots of like I'm the meme I'm neurodivergent and a minor.
Yeah.
It's just kind of all over that, and because the question walks away from is he's clearly so capable and smart. I choose to believe that he had no idea that Batman and Bruce Wayne were the same person. And that he was like, you can help bring this whole thing down because you're like me. You have to be like me. There's no way you would have ended up like this if you weren't like me. And he's like, no, I'm not going to be like you.
Yeah, so like...
And that breaks his heart.
The movie makes it a little unclear as to does he know this is Bruce Wayne? And then what ends up happening, and he goes, is where the thing that swung me, it took me to the second time of watching it to catch it, but he goes, we almost got him. As if to say, Bruce Wayne's not a real orphan. I was a real orphan. I had rats chewing on my fingers while I slept, and I was so cold you would just hear that like someone's baby died. And he was like, I was a real orphan, not this fucking pompous. So I think Batman is worried for a while that he he thinks that like, oh, he knows I'm Bruce Wayne. Shit. And then he goes like, oh, we almost got him. He's like, oh, thank God.
Right.
So you better be careful. That's like this is what I'm saying. Like that Bruce Wayne thing can be a big boon for you if you use it to sort of deflect stuff away from you.
I've heard a lot of criticism about this secret final plan about blowing the dams because it was never brought up originally, and then all of a sudden he's like, "And I've also had bombs everywhere, and they're gonna flood the city." And it's kind of like it didn't bother me too much, but it was kind of like, okay, that wasn't referenced before.
The edgelord in me really wants it to just be like I feel like Matt Reeves got gun shy and was like, well, I do PG-13. This is the bad side of comic book movies is we have to have like a disaster to be averted.
Right.
I wish what would have happened is like
all those guys just open fire on the
yes,
and that's way too close for comfort.
Yeah,
you've got you've got the other mayoral candidate who is very clearly an AOC stand-in.
Yeah, I guess
very much a
I didn't see it
progressive
that way
woman of color.
So you just said that.
Yeah, and is very much kind of coded.
Oh, yeah, because there's an election kind of happening in the backdrop. Yeah, because
the first person that dies is the mayor.
Yeah,
is the corrupt mayor who's going up. And also that's when we also realized like half the PD force is like was rats and everybody's no one can trust anybody. All these systems are corrupt and wrong. And
well,
fucked.
So the idea is they do open fire, but they do it in this very namby. Like if this was real, and I know that we're not slaves to realism here, they would have just like had a bunch of AR-15s and bump stock and just do because the purpose is like
very upsetting.
Yeah,
because they would have just been mowing people.
And
down.
the way to show it to be like. The way to make it ugly is to show that, like, well, the people that are inside of here aren't just Gotham City elites. There are people getting away from the water, like kids and poor people, too.
Right.
It's to show that these people are idiots, kind of.
Well, and it's also, it reckons way too much about that idea of, like, there was a time in the 90s and the 2000s where we were afraid whenever somebody would pull a fire alarm, they're just trying to bring everyone out in the hallways to gun them all down. Yeah. And it's that chilling effect. So I understand why he had to be delicate with it. I'm like, this could either be really raw if not done.
I just like these. They're not. They didn't strike me as that dangerous, and I wanted to feel like they were more dangerous. And that would have made me feel like.
Well, the idea of it is dangerous because it is very real. The idea that there could be somebody they build a parasocial relationship. It's very funny. When Paul Dano's unmasked, he's on the camera and just like, "Hey guys, thanks for all the tips,
for watching,
thanks for all the likes and subscribes." And it's a very darkly comic moment because it's like, no, that's a
very real thing.
Happens. People get radicalized with parasocial connections to people, and sometimes go off and do crimes. Yeah, and do terrorism.
And I feel like the fight was too much. Let me save these guys in a non-lethal way, and not enough of but make it a little bit more thrilling. The best part of them, I was hoping, and he actually does this. Remember when I said like one thing I want Batman to do is just like as he's fighting somebody, do a quick distraction, just go boop, lights go out, and he fights everybody in the dark. We do kind of get that in this movie, so I'm giving Matt Reeves an extra bump up for that.
That left the final fight just because, again, we're not having a fight with a singular boss.
No, we're having a bunch of goons.
We're having a bunch of goons, and it's because he's not gonna. Paul Dano's going down in a heartbeat. Like that's the point.
He goes down like a bitch.
Yeah, he gets slapped in the face like There Will Be Blood.
But he even says that he goes like, I needed you to bring him into the light, and he goes like, what are you talking about? Is it my gifts aren't physical? And he goes, I'm a thinker like you. I needed someone like you, and he goes, that's why you and me are such a great team. He goes, we're not a team. We didn't do anything together. Whatever.
And that bums him out.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And this is what I'm talking about. Like the unintended consequences are like, I was trying to like, when I say I'm vengeance, like I'm going after the criminals of the city. Like, yeah, we should go after the criminals of the city. All the rich elites that basically, like, no, you don't understand what I'm trying to do. And I was like, and it's like he's trying to destroy crime. You inspired crime.
Right.
You made something happen. Like that's a
where,
big wake up call for Batman in this movie.
And there is a little bit of that. What I will say is Christian symbolism, where when he's like, if this thing drops, all these people are going to get electrocuted. He takes out the batarang, or what is a bat knife. I think they say it's not a batarang.
Yeah, it's in
like
his
a bat
chest.
Knife. He takes it out, cuts the wire, and allows himself to get electrocuted, and comes back from the dead.
Use the gun. Shoot it with a gun.
Yep. Shoot it with a gun.
Shoot it with a gun.
But it made for a cinematic moment where he comes out of the water and now has this new outlook on things where he's like, I can be a symbol. I can be something greater. It's refreshing after being in the darkness for so long.
Also, like, not to be a stickler, like, you only get electrocuted if you're relatively close to it going down.
Right.
So, like when lightning strikes water and you're like a mile away, you don't get electrocuted. Anyway.
But I think there is a symbolism to it that.
Oh yeah, he lights the torch and leads them out of the darkness. It's nice.
And it's sunrise, and it's like after being down in literally like the depths and darkness and grime, we're coming out into the light, and he's putting people on helicopters and stuff, and it's just like, that's refreshing.
I agree.
That's refreshing to see. Like we can now kind of get a measure of where this character's going. Should the next movie, like, we're not going to have the same Bruce Wayne as before. Like, he's gonna be like, all right, now I need to cater this thing better.
This is where it's a good opportunity to clean him up a little bit. Right. Like, you can get him a new costume, a nice little cow.
Get him a good costume.
You can get him some new gadgets, show that he's trying to have a bigger impact in his community, which is like another thing that the person was like, we keep trying to make calls to you and you keep dodging all our calls.
Right.
So we can, like, it's an opportunity to do that and bring in a more slightly heightened threat.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It is very refreshing at the end. There's like news clips of like the Batman saves.
Brings back the Nirvana in the end as a nice little closing song. So one more thing about the Giannici soundtrack is, especially during the trailer, there's a little bit of a little do 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 do, and I was like, getting a little Empire Strikes Back there.
It was that? I guess I didn't catch that.
I heard that.
Cool.
It was a little bit of like do 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 do, and I'm like, sounds a little Star Wars.
Fair enough. He did do Rogue One, so I mean,
yeah, there you go.
So yeah, and then
great little part at the end where a lot of people online really love this is when Selena and him are driving motorcycles through the cemetery and drive apart. Everyone's like, that is so romantic. That is like goth romantic perfection.
It sure is.
Driving in the dawn on motorcycles through the cemetery.
We have the scene with Joker and the Riddler. The Riddler's sad. And here's something that
I got friends.
And he goes, hey, like what's something that the less of them you have, the more one is of value to you or whatever. And he goes, a friend. And then they start laughing like idiots. Or whatever.
They start laughing like villains.
Here's the thing about
Kagan's Joker looks gnarly and scary and really weird.
Yes.
And it's the only rational continuation, though I would really love a return to classy, like, sophisticate Joker, a little more Mark Hamill, a little more Jack Nicholson.
I wouldn't mind
but I
that.
don't think we can do that.
You can't do
now.
Jack Nicholson.
No.
Because Jack Nicholson's is so on the nose now.
Right.
Like, here's the thing about the Joker that it's so hard to get right. He's got to be two things at the same time. And if you're only one of them, you fail. Right. That's why Jared Leto's failed. Even though I think that he's good in that Snyder Cut post-credits. It's not post-credit scene, but it's the end
dream sequence. I get it. I agree with that.
So you have to be scary / lethal, and you have to be funny.
Yes, you have to be funny.
Heath Ledger's Joker is genuinely both of those. He's scary and unnerving, but he's also funny and will make you laugh. Like him sitting down in front of Harvey Dent, and he's just like, "Hi."
Or
sorry.
One of my favorites is when he's walking out with all the gangsters. He's got the pin on the.
Let's
grenades.
not blow this out of proportion.
Like, do you think you could just walk out of here with all the money? Yeah.
Like I laughed so hard during that. Or even the when he walks.
You ought to know you bought it.
When he walks in for the first time, and he's like, some 2-bit hack job named the Joker. He's not a problem. and then the guy on the TV makes some stupid plan, and he walks in and he goes, aha, aha, my jokes were bad, or whatever.
Here's my card. It's just a Joker card.
Or even just like, you remind me of my father. And he goes, I hated my father. like he's got so many jokes that he's genuinely funny, which disarms you.
You seen Harvey? Have you seen Harvey? You seen a guy?
But if you're looking real close, you can learn something about every scene he's in. For example, when he's talking about, we're tonight's entertainment, he grabs a glass of champagne, but you notice he throws it all out and drinks like a drippity drop because he's about to fight Batman.
Right.
Which makes me think this guy has like training in the background.
It's like I've said many times, his performance is specific. It's like it's a masquerade of chaos, but he's got a plan. He's got a point of view. One of my favorite scenes in that, not to go back to a movie we've talked about before, but is at that gangster scene where he's like, he's crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. He's upset by this. He's like, don't call me crazy. You don't know what I can do. He takes offense to that.
And he's like, what do we need you for? I was like, well, if you're good at something, never do it for free. And he's like, what do you want? And he goes, half, please. And then he burns it all down.
It's not about the money.
It's about sending a message or whatever.
So good.
Like it is a performance that stands up really well. I stand by this. If you would have given Jared Leto a scene where he gets arrested by the cops, they're taking him down to like the holding cell before they can ship him to Arkham or whatever, have him like in an elevator with handcuffs and have him just like crack his neck, dislocate his thumb, and then out of the blue just like kill those cops.
Right.
I don't care if it's like, oh, it's killing cops. Are we sending him? He's the Joker. He's allowed to kill whoever we want. Have him
show him be so his derangement is his lethality.
And you have to build it up like the Goblin scene in No Way Home, where you know there's something's about to go down. Have him crack his neck and just kind of look around the room, and have him.
That's actually a really good idea.
I know. If you would have done that, everyone would have said he was an awesome Joker. But all we get is like him being like weird and kind of funny sometimes, but we don't get to see him do anything.
He feels very edgy and Skrillexy, and he's laughing on a floor.
But like, imagine like he beats two of the cops, and maybe there's a big one that he has to like. He kills. There's 4 cops. He kills 3 of them, and the big one is like beating the shit out of him, and he's trying to. And then he has him like pinned up against a wall, like oh, you're not so tough, and he just bites his neck, and
bites his nose,
and like yanks out his fucking jugular and just spits it out, and then he like walks out covered in blood and just like leaves, like walks out the front door, and
that gives you an idea of how damaged that
exactly
is.
Like that would be a thing of the Joker. This Joker, it's just like he's like, oh, don't be so sad, you did so good. And I'm like, I wanted some jokes. I wanted like, and I'm such a snob when it comes to the Joker. Like Joaquin Phoenix is both of these. He's funny and he's violent at times. Like that's the key to getting the Joker. You got to be able to do both,
right?
And you'll do good. Barry Keoghan is neither. So far.
And also,
he's just kind of gross looking.
That's kind of why I thought he was just a placeholder.
It could be.
Where it's like, all right, Barry Keoghan, we got you in this, but since I did that thing, we're wherever he is. Okay. That's the movie.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Oh, of course. It's a great movie. That's why you liked it.
I will say, even though after a while, it's just like, I could stay in this forever, towards the end, like after the Falcone part, after the Falcone fight with Selena and all that, I started to get a little tired. I was like, kind of like, let's start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
So its length, especially in like the last 30 minutes or last 20 minutes, started to weigh on me.
I think that all could have been streamlined in the writing process, but I actually don't have a lot of screenplay notes. I just think that you could have made your last act, instead of like bombs and levees and water, you could have just made it
if you've not set that up.
You could have just made it like, maybe there's a bomb threat, everyone needs to stay, or some sort of other threat, everyone needs to stay inside, and then they just start opening fire. They lock the door, like they lock the doors. Make it a thing where Batman has to lay siege to the tower, so we don't waste like this 5-6 minutes uncovering this, like an extra. I mean, you can make it an extra plan or whatever. That's fine, but like, so you don't have to waste all the extra time of that.
Yeah,
that's sort of how I felt about it. But I still think it's good. I still love the part where he injects himself with adrenaline.
Have you heard people say they think that that's the Venom? No,
for Bane.
The Bane Venom?
No, it's just adrenaline.
It's just adrenaline. He's just hopping himself up because he needs it.
Yeah, because he's like fought a bunch of dudes, and like he got shot a bunch, and his chest is like probably on fire. And I love that when he does it, he just like hulks to life and just wastes this dude. And the thing that like is the ultimate come down at the end, he takes the dude's mask off, and they go, "Who are you?" And he goes, "I'm vengeance." And
good, so good. That was really good.
And he has to go, "Fuck." That's like Batman being like, I kind of did this. I like movies where we don't let Batman off the hook too much.
And that's why he doesn't feel like we were talking about, he doesn't feel OP, all powerful, he knows everything. This experience is a learning lesson to him. It is a traumatic learning lesson to him where he's like, I need to change what I am. My Batman is clearly not perfect yet. It's not exactly what it needs because there are repercussions that I'm not aware of.
It's a lesson of his obsession. Like maybe
it's humility.
When you are this obsessed, you're gonna make other people kind of obsessed or whatever. And like you can make your Batman.
Infamy has both its cool side and its dangerous side.
Yeah. You can make your Batman powerful, but not make him have all the answers or anything. I think Ben Affleck's Batman is kind of the best example of like when he's in that warehouse scene, he's in control of everybody. Like he's a dominating force, and everything else, like he's a little bit on the back foot. Like he wants the kryptonite, but he loses it. He shoots the tracker on it. He has to steal it from LexCorp again. Like he makes mistakes. And I think there's a weird double standard where like people have with Batman where he has to either A, have all the answers, but they say this Batman's an idiot because he doesn't know everything and have a perfect plan for everything.
Right.
Like I heard people say that about Affleck, and I'm like, well, the purpose of his Batman is that he is unhinged and all he cares about is killing Superman.
Right. He's
This guy is obsessed. He's not unhinged, but all he cares about is fighting criminals and getting that kind of vengeance.
And
that has repercussions. It has repercussions for both Batmans.
Right.
Which is why at the end of both of these movies, we have a slight redemption of these characters. At the end, like when at the end of him saving those people, like, and it's a great little scene as he's putting that lady on the gurney and lifting him up, and he kind of looks up at her as he's on top of this, what is it, like some Gotham stadium? I can't remember what it is.
It's the top of the stadium.
Yeah. And like it's a very like you said, it's a very uplifting scene where like he's there with the first responders. If he was just a violent vigilante like Ben Affleck's, I would be like, everyone should be scared of him. Like they are Ben Affleck's or whatever.
And it's very possible that future movies can challenge this altruistic thing that he's trying to create because he still has a lot to learn.
Sure.
But this is a great place to leave this character off.
It's a good
for things to come.
It's a real steady first movie.
Yes.
Second movie
is a really great Batman movie.
Yeah, if the second movie is just like more serial killer stuff, I'm gonna be like, I've seen this before.
Right.
Even like, like I'll give you the first one because it's like was the first time we kind of get it with Batman. But everything else, I just want to slowly edge the heightened like more than humanness of his threats just a little bit each time. Right. Or whatever.
And there are practical ways of doing it. It's just you got to sit down and think about it.
You can make it like a slower thing where like I would watch several movies of this Batman.
Yeah. Like I said, I really
we have all the time to do that.
I really like Robert Pattinson with this.
Yeah.
So good
also,
good on you, Matt Reeves.
Also, I would love to know what his origin is. They kind of imply Alfred teaches him how to fight. I don't like that. Ninjas.
Because obviously the big thing is he didn't bulk up. He's just Robert Pattinson.
That's not true. So he said, like when he said that comment got taken out of context or whatever.
With a lot of things Robert Pattinson says, because Robert Pattinson is a notorious troll who just loves to have fun with people.
And he was like, I really wish I hadn't said that because everyone took it out of context or whatever. He goes like, of course I worked out for the role, but I didn't get like Ben Affleck got like shredded.
Ben
for the
Affleck
role.
lifting tractor tires and stuff. Like no,
like
doing PW30 or whatever.
Ben Affleck's doing pull-ups with like 50-pound weights down.
Right. He's
like
huge.
Now this guy is just a little bit more like he's in good shape, but he's not like he's too obsessed to be in that good shape.
Right. He's not eating
Maybe after
well.
this he'll start like a nice P90X regimen.
Right. He'll start
like,
having a better diet. You know, like he doesn't eat well.
Yeah. Anyway, that has been the movie.
And that has been the movie.
The movie date.
The movie date with Rob and Matt. I think next time we'll talk recommendations and all that. We'll have another episode.
Yeah, we're gonna do either the Northman or like probably a wrap up.
I think I would like to, but we'll get to. I mean, you'll hear whatever you hear first.
You'll get what you get.
Yeah, and of course,
right?
we're gonna. I think we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
because we also have to talk about everything everywhere all at once.
Yes, I definitely want to see that. Yeah, this has been the Movie Date with Rob and Matt, a podcast for people who like movies but don't want to be too smug about it. You can find us on Podbean and YouTube and Apple Podcasts / iTunes or whatever. And leave us a like, leave a subscribe. It really helps us more than you think.
Find us on Facebook.
Follow us on Facebook.
Yep. Leave some comments.
Leave some insults. I'm fine.
Yeah, just drag us to the ground.
And we will see you guys next time.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.